Requesting my team to start with the video.
Developing clean energy is an inevitable choice in the path of protecting the living environment of the mankind. Only by achieving the all-round prosperity of clean energy will we be able to give our descendants the precious blue sky as our legacy. JA Solar, leading the core technology and quality of global photovoltaic products, has been working unremittingly in developing green energy for a dozen years. Today, JA Solar will guide you through the structure of PV modules and the installation procedures. A structure. This is a piece of JA Solar monocrystalline module. The front structure consists of the aluminum alloy frame, tempered glass of high transparency, high-quality EVA, solar cell of high performance, and welding ribbon of low resistance. The back structure consists of the product label with electrical parameters, junction box, positive-negative cables together with connector, backsheet, and high-reliability silicon sealant. Please be aware of the mounting holes, grounding holes, and drainage holes on the frame. The limit operating temperature should be -40 degrees Celsius, -40 degrees Fahrenheit, and 85 degrees Celsius, 185 degrees Fahrenheit. Please do not install the module in these places containing ammonia, saline water, salt mist, acid rain, or other corrosive materials, and keep the modules away from inflammable and explosive areas. To avoid damages caused by lightning, the module must be fitted with lightning protection devices. Unloading and storage. Please unload the modules on a solid, wide, and flat ground. Do not unload or stack up the modules on bumpy, ponding, sinking ground or slopes. Please check the module type, peak power, current class, and loaded quantity soon after delivery. When removing the waterproof cover, do not tear it apart to avoid damages to the outer packing. When removing is finished, please check carefully if the outer packing is intact and verify if the module type and quantity on the package are in conformity with the delivery note. If any abnormity occurs, please contact the JA Solar customer service right away. Use the forklift or crane for unloading. When using the forklift to unload, do not hit the package with forklift arms. When placing the modules, do not drop the package abruptly. When using the crane to unload, please adjust the location of suspension straps to keep the modules steady and balanced. No more than 2 cases are allowed in one operation. When placing the modules, do not drop the package abruptly. The modules must be stacked in alignment from top to bottom, and no more than 2 cases are allowed in one stack. For storage, please keep the wrapping film and carton package intact. If stored outdoors, please cover the modules with the waterproof cloth promptly. Transportation and unpacking. Please use appropriate vehicles to transfer the modules. Earth mover and excavator are not allowed in such cases. When the modules are delivered to the construction site, please check the module type, peak power, current class, and quantity as specified in the shipping mark. It is suggested to use utility knives to remove the packing bands and wrapping film. Violent demolition is prohibited, for which might damage the modules inside. After opening the package cover, please carefully verify the number of modules inside and check if the barcode information on the frame is in conformity with the shipping mark. Before removing the inner packing bands, please take protective measures to avoid the entire case being capsized. 2 men are required to hold the short sides of the module frame with both hands. Take it out and place it steadily on the pallet. Do not attempt to unpack the module on one's own, which may cause sliding down, breakage, and micro crack of the modules. Please note that the glass side of the first module should face upwards whilst the glass side of the other module should face downwards. Stacked parts shall remain aligned. No more than 20 pieces are allowed in one stack, and do not pile up heavy items on top of the modules. Do not squeeze or hit any part of the module. Do not stand, sit, sleep, or stack heavy items on the module, which may cause micro crack of the module. Do not touch the junction box and the metal parts of the cables to avoid electric shock. Please note that even in rainy days with low irradiance, the module would still generate voltage after irradiation. Before installation, make sure the following checking list is ticked, including glass breakage, cell breakage, backsheet scratch, aluminum frame deformation, junction box divorced or lid missing, label missing or defected, breakage of cables or connectors, and other abnormalities. Should the above-mentioned situations arise, please take photos for the record and contact a JA Solar customer service promptly. Mechanical installation. In order to achieve the optimal power output of the system, please install the modules with identical power and current into the same strings. When moving the module, it is required that 2 men hold the short side of the module frame with both hands and move it vertically. Do not try to drag the module by grasping the cables. Do not carry the module on the head, shoulder, or back. Please install the modules from the top row to the bottom row in order to avoid stepping on the lower modules. Place the modules gently on the supporting rail and avoid clashing. Please use the original mounting holes on the frame to fix the modules firmly. Do not drill at any other places. The module installation can either be fixed by the screw bolts or the clamps. Here we are going to demonstrate the installation process involving clamp fixation as an example. Place the exterior module first and then adjust the position of the module and the clamps. Put the bolt with gasket through the clamp and bracket, and then another gasket, the spring washer, and the screw nut one by one. Finally, tighten the screw. The torque is required to be 18 to 24 Newton meter. Place the second module after all the clamps are fastened. When the second module is properly positioned, use the intermediate clamp to join the right side of the first module and the left side of the second module tightly. If the clamp is not positioned at the right place, it may cause failure of module fixity or frame deformation. When installing the modules on higher brackets, please use scaffold or other installation platforms as support. It is forbidden to hit the module or sit, sleep, step, or crawl on the module, which may cause inner micro crack and impair the power output of the module. It is suggested to connect the positive and negative connectors right after the module installation. If the connection fails instantly, please do not cut off the cable ties and keep the connector ports away from water and sand. Electrical connection. When fixing the electrical connection of the modules, please use the diagonal cutting plier to cut the cable ties and cut carefully to avoid scratches on the cables and the back sheet. Join the positive and negative connectors following the sequence as specified in the electrical connection instructions. If the connectors are correctly positioned, you will hear a click sound as a confirmation. Otherwise, the wrong connection may trigger the module to generate electric arcs during the operation, which can damage the connectors. When the strings are gathered in the combiner box, it is required to use special PV cables as extensions. Do not cut off the electrical connection when it is loaded. Wrong connection may generate electric arc or shock that may damage the modules. Keep the connectors dry and clean during the installation. Before power station starts operation, please conduct the electric check of the modules and strings to confirm if the polarity of the strings is correct and the open circuit voltage is up to the standard. To avoid thunderstrike and ensure electric safety, the frame of the module must be grounded. It is suggested to use the AWG6 to 12 wire diameter 4 to 2 millimeters copper core as the grounding conductor. Meanwhile, it is suggested to use the labeled grounding holes or other unused mounting holes on the frame for grounding. Do not attempt to drill at any other places. JA modules can be grounded by using a third-party grounding device so long as they are certified to be safe and reliable. The grounding device must be manufactured by a qualified electric product supplier and properly installed by a qualified electrician. Operation maintenance. Please regularly check and maintain the PV modules on the basis of system monitoring data to ensure safe, stable, and efficient operation of the system. Accumulated dust and dirt would decrease the power output of the modules and even result in hotspots. Therefore, it is critical to regularly clean the glass surface of the modules, but do not wash the modules that have exposed broken glass and damaged cables to avoid electric shock. Please schedule a proper cleaning routine of the modules. It is suggested to do the cleaning when the sunlight is relatively weak, such as in the early morning, in the evening, at night, or on rainy days. Use soft materials such as sponge or non-woven cloth, together with soft brushes and rubber glass cleaning tools to clean the modules, and do not use any hard materials such as knife or steel wool. All types of commercial glass cleaning detergent or alcoholic solution can be used to assist cleaning. However, abrasive powder, polishing powder, acid solution, alkaline solution, gasoline, and steam are prohibited. The water pressure for cleaning the modules shall not be higher than 690 kilopascal. Do not stand or walk on the modules during cleaning.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Priyanshi, and I am welcoming you all on behalf of Solar Quarter and First View Group. Our today's webinar on Solar Roofs West Africa 2021 has brought all of us together on this virtual platform to have insights from some of the top industry leaders and who are involved in the driving mission forward of this region. So, before starting today's proceeding, I take this opportunity to thank and welcome our sponsors for this event. Gold partner J Solar, supporting partner Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria. Now, without any further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Ayowale Ojo, who is the sales manager of West Africa J Solar, to give his presentation. Ayawale sir is a trained development professional and certified project manager with experiences in renewable energy and solutions sales across West and Central Africa. He holds a BA in Classics from the University of Ibadan and MA in Development Studies from Manchester University. In the last 8 years, he has led business development and sales teams across West and Central Africa in information technology and renewable energy sectors. He currently manages J Solar business across West and Central Africa. Welcome on the screen, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You can continue with your
Okay, thank
presentation.
you so much, Priyanshi, for the introduction. Just hold on a minute.
Sure.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I take this opportunity to thank everyone that logged on to this event. We thank you so much for coming in, and also for the organizers of the event. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate this, and we all of us are looking forward to a very educational and eventful couple of hours together. As an original equipment manufacturer and equipment supplier that J Solar is across the globe, and with strong presence in West Africa, we will be discussing today the impact of our technologies on the commercial and financial standing of solar projects generally. That's what we'll be talking about, and how our technologies are able to tackle some of the challenges faced by solar rooftops or solar projects in West Africa and across the globe in general. Yeah, as a form of overview, yes, we're going to be having a short introduction, also mentioning a couple of challenges being faced across the region. Also, yeah, so for a few people that may not know JA Solar, we'll do a quick introduction of JA Solar. Also, how we are working at tackling these challenges with our technologies. Yeah, we all of us in the room. I'm very sure we are conversant with solar and and what is happening in the space now. Hence, we are here to learn and to discuss and to 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 collaborate into fostering a better future for solar and renewable in general in West Africa. There was a research that was done in 2020, and that shows that in 2050 the power mix in Africa in general and in ECOWAS, the West African states, the 18 countries, the solar will be a prime source of power generation in the region. This reaffirms the importance of solar in the renewable energy space for us, and but this cannot be achieved because of if a lot of challenges are not tackled head on at the moment. Hence, we will be touching on them in today's presentation. Yeah, these are some of the challenges listed. Yes, there are tons of challenges. We have the financial, we have a lot of challenges. But I just, funding, that's one big one. A lion in the room, and I'm very sure a couple of persons will be discussing that later today. But for now, I will be mentioning a few, which is one, the net cost of electricity generation from solar. That is very fundamental. So it's how much does it cost to generate power from solar? And this is where technology comes in to solve. I'll be discussing that later. Space has been a challenge. So we live in West Africa. We are in example in Accra or in Nigeria or in Ouaga or Ouagadougou or Burkina Faso. The kind of the layout of buildings has made it tough for solar panels to be placed on roofs, because, like Lagos example, the big companies in Lagos, before you put few panels on the roofs, it's full. So what do we do? These are the challenges that are being faced, and this is not affecting just rooftops alone, even non-rooftops. And these, I will be touching on how our solutions are helping to solve this challenge of urbanization across all the cities, in Cotonou, everywhere in West Africa. Equipment standardization. Standardization has been a discussion, a debate over the years across the world, and most importantly in West Africa in recent times. And how are we standardized? How are we helping to do this? How are we doing this? Also supply chain. Supply chain, how do we get these panels accessible to everybody? So even though you have a megawatt project, or you have just an installation of 1 kVA, 2 kVA, or just 1 kilowatt peak, 2 kilowatt peak, you want to just put 4 panels, 10 panels on your roof. How do you get the products? This has been a challenge also for quality products like JA Solar, and we'll be discussing that as we go on. Yeah, a little about JA Solar. JA Solar was founded in 2005, and largely before 2005, we were predominantly an organization that deals largely on the technical side of solar cell manufacturing. We were manufacturing solar cells largely, so it's huge R&D cost and everything, and it's beautiful. We were supplying nearly everybody in the industry until 2005. We decided, okay, why not just make solar modules? And we started making solar modules. And solar modules, since between 2005 and now, we've risen to be one of the Fortune China 500. Also, we have 11% of the global market. So out of tons of solar panels, names, we supply 11% of that globally as of 2020. Also, we have revenue of over 3.75 billion. Deployment, the shipment we've done already is over 63 gigawatts. That was as of 2020 Q4. So, and this year we've done a lot of shipments. Also, cumulative worldwide customers of over 33,000, and employees, which I'm just one of them. We have over 25,000 people. We have now about 13 manufacturing factories globally. We have some in China, some in Singapore, and across the world. So that's how big the company is. Also, I was saying before now that we are very huge on technology. JA Solar is a leader in technology innovation. So when we talk about patents, we have a lot of patents. Before the technology gets into the industry, we have it already, and we patent it, a lot of them. We are the first globally to start mass manufacturing of PERC. We have PERC patency. We have, as you can see on the screen, a lot of things that we are the first at. We are the first firm to manufacture PERC, as I've said. Also, more recently, gallium doping, we are the first in the industry, and we have the certification. We have the patents for that also. So we largely control the technology, and every other person that does the same in the industry, they leverage on our advancements to move on to participate in the industry, in the manufacturing of such. Well, now having to discuss the challenges how we've been tackling the challenges, I want to go to that directly. LCOE, is a thing that everybody discusses now in the industry. Also, that goes to talk about levelized cost of energy, which I mentioned initially. So, how much does it take to generate technology to generate power? And a lot of things go into this. Solar panel, the cost of that, mounting structure, and every other equipment down the line. But what our technology has come to do is to reduce these costs largely. We have our new Deep Blue 3.0, which comes from the range of 520 to 550 watt panel, just 550 watt on the panel. Reduces your cost across board. So it reduces the cost of mounting structure you need. It reduces a lot of things. Also, it reduces it causes less shading even on the panels. It's a lot of things, and these impact largely on the total cost at the end of the day of the manufacture of a solar project. We have these also in 465 watts, between 440 to 465 watts half cell, half cut panels. These are half cuts, and half cuts, as technology talks about as it's, if there's a shading on the part, the other part is still powerful. These are things that I may not be able to go into extensive details because it's a short 10 to less than around 10 minutes presentation. But these technologies, you can search on it and research it. We have all this in place. And this largely helps our partners, retailers, even installers in maximizing return on investments on projects. Also, yes, we have a bifacial. I was talking about space. Initially, I just mentioned SUE and space. The space that also, instead of having 20, 30 panels on a roof, why can't you have a bigger panel, but a slightly bigger panel, but with more power on it, which reduces cost, the space needed for installations. That is for rooftops, largely. And I can tell you confidently here that already in Nigeria, we've had shipments of this type of panels into the country, and it's being used, as I'm talking to you, across different projects in the country, a couple of projects in the country. Also, bifacial talks about one panel, but that can generate power from both sides. It's weather resistance, it's solid, it's low temperature coefficient, and the beauty of it is when it's not rooftop, if it's parking lot, for example. Yes, in Nigeria we're talking about Lagos. It's parked. In Accra is parked. Imagine Accra Mall, City Mall, for example, to be powered by solar panel, by solar. A lot of panels we can put on a mall, but all the same, the parking lot is huge. You can actually turn the parking lots to a solar farm. And with this, with bifacial underneath, on top of it, and the backside can actually have these. The same thing can be done across all the malls in Lagos, for example. These are technologies to serve the purpose of generating more power from a small space. And these are how our solutions are solving these problems. For certifications, across all the industry, across all countries, we have all certifications that are needed to standardize products. So we're talking about TUV, we're talking about all of them, every certifications you want. Even in Nigeria, we have SON. All our products are SON certified. We have some cap for everything, so it's ready already. So it's if you need it now, we ship to you now because we have all these in place already. For distributors, for access that I mentioned initially, we have distributors across the region. In Nigeria, we have components, we have RS in Benin, Togo. In Ghana, we have UTC. In Ouagadougou, we have Sahel Solar. We have Energy service, and in Lagos, in Nigeria also, we have Datek. We have a lot of these partners across the region. So if you are in a country that you don't know which partner services your country, you can easily shoot me a mail, or you can contact us, and easily we can direct you to the best person where you can access quality panels. Also, I want to mention here, for standard purposes, it's good to know who is the partner in the country. So feel free to send a mail to africa@jsolar.com. This will point to the right direction, because with what we're learning in the market, there are lots of people who are doing a lot of fake panels. They just print and they want to start. But this can easily be controlled by going to approved and known partners. And you can easily ask for our partners or our resellers through the africa@jsolar.com that I've said. This will help a lot in pointing you to the right direction. As I've said, yes, ojo@jsolar.com, that's my email, and africa@jsolar.com point you directly to the best place to go. With all this, I can always tell you, JA Solar, we are here to support your project, and our technology is robust, is vast in ascertaining the reduction in costs, and we are aligned to every certification you want to do, and we are looking forward to being a partner with you across on the road to achieving the 50-50 mandate of having solar as a huge part of our energy mix in West Africa. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation. Now, moving forward with our knowledge presentation on solar rooftop market outlook of Western Africa by Mr. Martins Arogi, who is the partner of KPMG Nigeria. Martin sir has extensive industry experience in varied industries, including clients in the servicing, trading sector, consumer markets, downstream and upstream sector, including renewable energy, delivering cutting edge results. He has varied experience advising multinational and national clients on Nigerian taxes and has proactively provided them with practical advice on how to manage any potential impact on their Nigerian operations. He has also obtained relevant experience in other jurisdictions through a secondment to the UK practice, where he worked on several engagements involving clients in both the energy and natural resources sector and consumer markets. So, welcome on the screen, sir.
Thank you very much, Prinash. It's a pleasure to be here today to speak on what I think it's a very, very germane topic and an issue that concerns a very, very important sector, not only for the economy as a whole, but also the climate change conversation that we have been having globally for a very, very long time. Nigeria is very much part of the world, and whatever we do here has an impact on the climate change situation. And it's very important that government begins to match up some of his words and some of his obligations with specific actions. So over the course of this presentation, what I'll basically be taking us through is what we consider uh, an overview of the sector in Nigeria, the power sector in Nigeria, not specifically solar, but the power sector as a whole. What are the key policies that are in place today that are primarily driving the sector in Nigeria? What we consider also the key challenges and obstacles to solar power projects from where we stand, and what are the opportunities and solutions for the sector? What do we think government should be doing, and what do we think the sector, and I talk about the sector, I talk about players and regulators in the sector, should be pushing for in order to be able to move this sector to the next level. And then I would also take questions if any. Unfortunately, I have only just about 15 minutes, so I would try and go through all of this within that time and still take one or two questions if possible. Okay, so in terms of overview of the sector, today in Nigeria, we have an installed generation capacity of about 13.5 gigawatts. Our peak demand is generally around 8.5 gigawatts, even though in terms of wheeling capacity, what we're generally able to supply on average is generally around 3.7 gigawatts. We've had instances where we've gone as far up to 5.5 gigawatts supplied at one particular point in time. But in terms of average, it's just around 3.7, which means that there is a significant gap between what is considered peak demand in Nigeria today and what is available capacity. So that gap has to be bridged somehow, and somebody needs to step in to bridge that gap. And that's where primarily the opportunities arise for the solar market in country. Now, only about 60% of Nigeria's population is connected to grid power today. So that leaves on the average somewhere around 16 million households, not people, households without access or connection to the grid. And these are people who actually require and need power on a day-to-day basis. I remember many years ago when the mini grids in rural areas first started, and I met some of the one of the promoters there, somewhere in a village close to Abuja. And one of the questions I asked him is, um, are you able to recover the cost of this project from this community? And he said to me, people are willing to pay for power if only they can find it. And that statement has stuck for me down the years. So the question is not whether people can pay. The question is whether the power is even available to be paid for in the first instance. There's just not enough power to go around. And that, again, like I said, provides some sort of opportunity for the solar market. But we'll look into that as we go further into the presentation. Now, today, and this is also a key fact, I thought to drop this here because I will talk about it also later in the presentation. 60% of the total electricity that we generate in Nigeria today is supplied to residential quarters. And that's an abnormality. In any developed country, what you'll find is that the bulk of power is consumed for productive activities and not residential areas. But the bulk of the power that we supply today is primarily consumed in residential areas, and that has a significant impact both on the solar market and also on our ability to continue to grow the economy. We're not going to grow the economy through sitting at home watching Big Brother. We need to go out there and we need to work and we need to produce stuff. And we need power for that. So if we can move the bulk of grid power into more productive activities, it would create some gap in residential power that we should be able to meet with solar power. Obviously, government has to provide the right environment and the right sort of incentive to create this opportunity and to incentivize people to move away from grid and move to solar rooftops. And I'll be talking about what kind of incentives, what kind of policies government can do to create this market of opportunity and that we can already see clearly exist here in Nigeria. Okay, there are basically three major forms of I use the word major because they're not the only source of power in Nigeria today. But there are basically three major sources of power in Nigeria today. There's hydro, fossil fuels, primarily gas, and then biomass and waste. Biomass and waste basically just covers a lot of what we see in the rural areas with firewood and all of that. Only about 0.001% of the total energy supplied in Nigeria today comes from wind and solar power. That's a significantly infinitesimal number. And then when we talk about climate change and the desire to basically move away and increase the share of renewable energy to total energy generated in Nigeria, this number just gives us cause for concern. And that's why I said at the beginning of the conversation that it's not just about talking a big game. We also need to play that game. And so government needs to do certain things from our own perspective to actually incentivize the move from fossil fuel, from waste to more solar power. Again, I will cover that later on in the presentation, what we think government can do or should be doing. Now, in terms of what are the key recent projects we've seen in the sector, solar projects in Nigeria, there's the Ashama 200 megawatts PV farm, which is supposed to be located in Delta State. Construction hasn't begun yet, but that's going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, solar farms in Nigeria when it eventually comes on stream. There's the Adebayo plant. In terms of capacity, is a bit small, but this is a community that for close to 60 years have never seen power. But with this solar plant, they were able to, for the first time, get access to power in that particular community. So it tells us that there is that opportunity through solar to create access to power within a very short time for underserved and unserved communities across the country. Um, there's also the Haven Hill Synergy Solar Hybrid Mini Grid in Budo, Oyo State. Okay, so what are the policies and initiatives driving solar power sector in Nigeria? What is government specifically doing today to drive that sector? So again, we're going to talk about whether these things are enough and what we think needs to happen, but what are they currently doing today? So you have the Solar Power Nigeria Connection Scheme. This is a program that was launched as part of the economic sustainability plan of the government, primarily to drive economic growth in Nigeria over the medium term. And this is a program that is more or less driven by the Rural Electrification Agency of Nigeria. And its key objectives primarily is to expand energy access to 25 million individuals, about 5 million new connections. So if we say about 16 million households today do not have access to power, this scheme is basically set out to address about 5 million of that number and say, how do we provide power, easy access to power for 5 million of those 16 million households that statistics tell us today have no access to power. And they want to do it primarily primarily, I use the word primarily because unfortunately we still don't have local capacity, but they want to do it primarily through local capacity using made in Nigeria produced goods, made in Nigeria produced panels and all of that, but we don't have that capacity, obviously. So a similar part of that number will still primarily have to be sourced from offshore. And then also create, by sourcing locally used manufactured goods for this program, the aim is to create somewhere around 250,000 new jobs in the energy sector. So it's all encompassing because it creates opportunities for Nigerians in terms of job opportunities. It creates markets. It creates a market for Nigerian producers of solar products, and it also then at the end of the day provide access to power. It also then provides access to power for 5 million new households that today have no access. So that's one of the key schemes that we have. You also have the Renewable Energy Master Plan, which talked about increasing um, the percentage contribution from renewable energy to the total power supplied in Nigeria to somewhere around 36% by 2020. But these numbers will not happen overnight, and there has to be deliberate actions to drive all of this. Otherwise, all of these very very large plans will primarily just end up somewhere just being something on paper. 36% by 2020 is a huge number. But if we don't do anything, if we don't take deliberate actions, obviously we won't achieve all of this. When I was a lot younger, we used to talk about Vision 2020 in Nigeria. 2020 has come and it has gone, and we've all moved now to 2030. So it's one thing to talk about what you would like to see, what you would like to achieve. Is another thing to then put in place deliberate steps and actions to achieve that. From where I stand today, I don't think that there's anything that's happening deliberately to drive the achievement of these goals. That's why at some point in this presentation, I will be talking about some of the things that we think needs to change to drive the achievement of these goals. But these are laudable goals, these are laudable objectives. We just need to be a bit more deliberate about the achievements. Okay, so there's also the National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Policy. You have the mini grid regulations. The mini grid regulations that they've been extremely very key because they've also created new vista of opportunities for people to be able to go to underserved and unserved areas, create mini grids, and then begin to provide power through solar panels. And that's one policy of government that we think has in a sense aided or provided a clear opportunity for us to be able to expand the scope of influence of solar energy in the country. Now, there's also the VAT modification order of 2020, which exempts specified renewable energy equipment from the application of VAT on importation or in-country sale of the equipment. Unfortunately, there is some lack of clarity as to how this incentive that was codified in this order would apply. But this order exists. It's supposed to help drive down costs of imported panels and imported other equipment that are related to renewable energy. But there has to still be a synergy between the Ministry of Finance, which is responsible for issuing orders like this, and then the Customs Authority, which are responsible for administering the collection of duties and VAT at the ports where these items come into the country. Because without that synergy, what you would find that these orders are issued and there is no follow through. So customs either are not aware, or when it's brought to their attention, they just ignore it because there is really no synergy and no communication between the Ministry of Finance, which is responsible for this order, and the Customs Authority. Even though the Customs Authority typically should report to the Ministry of Finance, but what we've seen from experience is that these things don't work in the same way as you would typically expect them to work in practice. Now, what are the key challenges or obstacles to solar power projects in Nigeria? I think the first one, from where we stand, is primarily cost. And when I talk about cost, I'm talking about the initial outlay. If you walk to an SME today and say to him, rather than have your small I pass my neighbor generator, would you rather put a solar panel on your roof? Now, there's significant advantage. One solar panel is cleaner. Secondly, you don't have to then deal with routine maintenance costs. You don't have to deal with cost of diesel or fuel, or wherever there's fuel scarcity, having to queue at filling stations, or at gas stations, trying to get gas for those generators. Whenever there is talk of increment in cost, you begin to lose sleep. So there's a whole lot of advantage that you can get from putting a solar panel on your roof rather than buying a small I pass my neighbor generator. But where that conversation always typically breaks down is when the SME considers that initial outlay. It can walk into any store, buy a fairly used small generator for somewhere between 15 to 30,000 naira, which may be affordable for him at that particular point in time. But when you then consider the cost of putting the panel on your roof, it's somewhere around it's almost 8 times the cost of buying a small generator. And that initial outlay always is a cost of concern, not only for SMEs, but even for residential for residential users. And so that's something that still needs to be addressed. In the long run, solar would primarily be cheaper, but that initial cost is a key concern. And that brings me to time, because it takes a longer time to realize the value when you invest in solar panels on your roof than when you easily go into the market and buy a small generator. Also, the fact that even though the cost of gas in Nigeria has more or less almost doubled over the course of the last 5 years, it is still the cheapest source of fuel in Nigeria today because of government subsidy. If you consider what the cost is in neighboring countries compared to Nigeria, which is one of the issues people have constantly raised as the driver for smuggling, Nigeria's gas still is very, very relatively cheap, and so that tends to also drive the so-called low cost that people think they would get from using gas generators, which is incorrect, but it appears cheaper to them over the short term. and then there is very little incentive. There is really no incentive to make people move. So if I think that I can't afford the initial cost of acquisition, what other benefits, what other incentives will government put in front of me that will drive this? Because at the end of the day, the desire for cleaner energy, the desire for a cleaner atmosphere has to come with a cost, and government needs to be able to put a price to that cost, a value to that they can sell to people. So it's not just about a cost thing. There also has to be some other value that government can ascribe to it that would make people move from their normal sources of power to putting panels on their rooftops. And this doesn't stop for only SMEs or residential users. It also applies to major corporations. What's the incentive? What's the value for them to incur that cost at the get-go? Okay, there's also a lack of information. I talked about how in the long run it would obviously be more expensive running diesel or gas generators, but people don't know that, and that's because the information out there isn't sufficient. Practitioners are doing a whole lot. I know Rian has done a whole lot with engaging, especially the president, engaging SMEs, engaging small businesses, engaging residential users. But there's only so much that they can do on their own. There has to be large scale dissemination of information. And until that happens, people will not on their own realize the benefit of solar rooftops, solar panels on their rooftops, and then begin to move. So that information is restricted to a few people, and the perception generally when you see solar panels on anybody's rooftop today, the first thought that comes to your mind is this is someone who has money, this is someone who is well to do, because it appears like an elitist symbol. But that's not correct. This is something that is good for everybody. This is something that is necessary for everybody. So until we get that information out there, and stop people thinking that it is elitist to have a panel on your rooftop, we may not be able to drive the required change that we're looking for. So we need to move the target market from the middle class, in terms from the middle class, and probably the underserved in rural areas, and then begin to engage more with large corporates in urban areas, and also SMEs in urban areas. And that's where we can then get the mileage that we're looking for in this particular industry. There's also and that's what would also drive investors to get a bit more involved in solar companies and putting money down to be able to upscale operations in some of these companies. Okay, so what are the opportunities and solutions for solar power? And I'm going to quickly just run through this. I think that the opportunities primarily is what I just talked about, which is expanding the scope, ensuring that SMEs in urban areas and primarily large corporates in urban areas also see the benefits. And how do I think that this is going to happen? I think the first thing that needs to happen is we need to find a way, the same way we subsidize PMS today, the same way we subsidize gas today, we need to begin to find a way to subsidize the initial cost of acquisition for SMEs in Nigeria. Many years ago, there was a particular fund that was set up by the Bank of Industry, even though it's debatable how much mileage that fund went and how much access SMEs had to that
Martin,
fund.
sir, I'm really sorry to interrupt you. I would request you, can you wind up in 2 minutes as we are running late for the
No
panel
problem.
discussion? Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
so I'm rounding up now. So this is a unique scheme where government would require companies that are currently using diesel generators to contribute a portion of their profits, in the same way as we have a road transport, a road network scheme today. So companies are able to contribute to that and get a tax deduction for that contribution. and that fund is then used to then subsidize the acquisition of solar panels for SMEs in Nigeria. So it's a scheme that we've used for ensuring that we get private individuals into building roads in Nigeria. We can apply that scheme into ensuring that we create a fund through which SMEs can access and thereafter be able to fund the acquisition of panels on their roof. I think that this would be a game changer for the industry. And then secondly, we also need to be able to provide incentives. If someone says to me today, if I put a solar panel on my roof, I'll be able to take the cost of that panel as a tax deduction when I pay my own taxes, and I do pay significant taxes in Nigeria, I probably will be more inclined to do that and move away from diesel generators that I currently run in my home, because then I would consider it and say this puts money in my pocket. So it's not just about cleaner energy, it also puts money in my pocket as a residential user. And then what happens? The spare capacity that we have through people moving from grid power to solar panels on their roof will then be available for productive activities, because we can then move that grid power into more productive activities. So it's providing incentives not only to manufacturers, not only to importers, not only to installers, because when you talk about duty exemptions, VAT exemptions, those are incentives you provide to manufacturers and importers and may not necessarily be passed on to final consumers. I'm talking about putting in place specific incentives for companies and residential users that puts money in their pocket when they install these panels on their roof. Once we do that, we'll be able to create a shift in the dynamic of this market. So that's me rounding up here now. I'm not sure there's still time to take questions, but if there are questions and you drop it in the chat box, I would be willing to answer them. Thank you very much for this opportunity. You can also reach out to me through my contact here if you have any further questions, and I'll be willing to answer them at no cost. Thank you very much. Thanks, Priyanshi.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation and setting the tone for the panel discussion. Now we will move forward with our much awaited panel discussion. The topic of our panel discussion for this session is CEOs and government talk, trends, challenges, and opportunities in new era. And in our allied panel, we have Miss Queen Agonman, who is the Deputy Country Manager of Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility, and she is also the moderator for today's session. Mr. Heather Komakipai, who is the GM of Africa J Solar, Mr. Akin Sinmi, who is the Vice President of Growth, Strategy and Business Operations of Energy, Mr. Edwin Ahrens, who is the Managing Director of AB Solar Africa, Mr. Atetundi Eronmi, who is the CEO of Solar Centric Technologies and Vice President of Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria, and Mr. Martin Arogi, who is the partner of KPMG Nigeria. Here, I would like to make a small announcement for all the attendees. If you have any questions during the panel discussion, please post them in the Q&A box. Our panelists will take their questions at the end of the session. Now, I would like to hand over to Queen Ma'am.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, wherever you're coming from. So yes, my name is Queen Akomo, Deputy Country Manager for the Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility, a four-year program funded by the UK FCDO. And we aim to catalyze market-based approach for the private sector delivery of renewable energy technologies, with more emphasis on the solar standalone sector. Thank you so much to Mr. Martins Aroge. That was a very wonderful and very informative, insightful presentation. So we're just going to be following through with that presentation and basically just asking the panel to give some opinions and recommendations on, with regards to, how to mitigate against the barriers that the rooftop solar is currently experiencing. So given that we've gone over some of the policies and the regulations that govern the sector, I just wanted to call on Mr. Martins again, if you may, and just basically, if you can just add any other, what do you think that is required for the sector, for the rooftop solar sector to, grow in regards to policy and regulation? What else can the government do to amplify and scale up the sector, seeing that there's a target to deploy 500 megawatt of solar by 2025, which we have not yet achieved. So what do you think the government can do to boost the growth of the sector? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's not very different from what I just spoke about. I think the government needs to be a bit more deliberate about its actions, um, and drive people towards. Sorry, I don't know. There's a lot of background noise. If everybody can mute their mic. Sorry. Okay, so I think that government can be a bit more deliberate about some of its policies, and then drive the adoption of solar energy. Like I pointed out, I think the first thing is to basically say what's the major cost to, or what's the major challenge, and that challenge primarily, to my mind, is twofold. One, in terms of cost, people just can't afford that initial cost. Secondly, in terms of people seeing what that value is. And those are two things that I think government working with the private sector can quickly address. I talked about today in Nigeria, if you saw a bad road as a company, and you wanted to fix it, all you just needed to do was get approval from the government, fix the road, and then you get your money reimbursed plus an uplift, for which you can then apply against your tax payable on an annual basis. You're going to pay the tax anyway, so you're primarily just paying the tax ahead of time and getting an interest, from government, for doing that. So if we can do something very similar and say establish more like a clean energy tax, that companies who still use non-renewable energy sources of power can't pay or would pay, and then that is then used to then fund an acquisition fund primarily for SMEs. Now, because of the fact that people have always complained about too much taxes in Nigeria, and we can do this in a way that it is not punitive, which is so we align it very similar to what we have for the road infrastructure, tax program. And so companies are also able to get an uplift on whatever they contribute to that fund. And then we use that to provide grants, low interest loan, very low interest loans to SMEs and residential users to ensure that those guys are able to then move from petrol generators or diesel generators, to rooftops. It creates an opportunity for the players in the industry. It creates significant job opportunities for Nigeria, because if we're installing a hundred rooftops a month in total in the urban areas, and we, because of this availability of finance, we are able to now do 2,000. We're going to employ more people. We're going to train more people to be able to do all of this. So it will significantly incentivize the industry. And this doesn't involve taking cash from anybody's hand, because again, like I said, they get a benefit for it, including an uplift. So I think that would be a significant game changer for the industry. The second one, quickly, just as a round up, the second one primarily is to then say for guys who don't need, who can actually afford it, but haven't done it, because they don't see that value. We can then give them specific incentives. So all the focus has always been around giving tax holidays to installers and producers, giving waivers to installers and producers. Why don't we then find a specific incentive that we can give to users, specific directly to users that put money in their pocket if they move to renewable energy, specifically solar panels on their rooftops. And there are a number of specific incentives we can consider, because we can consider, and this will also drive the uptake, and also drive primarily the level of penetration of this particular technology. Thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderfully said. I can't agree any more with that. Absolutely, there's a need for the government to begin to task those who are using generator and fossil fuel, and then that money can then be added to the renewable energy sector, saying that the global warming is not stopping, and we need to make very deliberate efforts. Thank you so much, and as well as the demand subsidy strategies are required to see how we can incentivize the consumers as well. Wonderful, thank you. So I'll be moving on to Mr. Akinsani Simi, the VP of Growth, Strategy and Business Operations at Energy. Please, what do you think are the key obstacles in seeking finance? Because this is one of the major problems, like has been discussed. The end users are, they see it as a huge barrier. It's so expensive, they can't afford it, so they rather just go with a smaller generator. Well, what do you think are the key barriers, as well as any other potential solutions in financing the rooftop solar sector? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can you? All right, thank you, Ms. Queen, distinguished panelists, members of the audience. It's a privilege and an honor to be here. I think Mr. Martins has done a lot of great job around most of those barriers. So I will not literally be talking about incentives that government can do and all of that, but I will just speak to two major areas that I think we need to start to sort of look at. If you look at the sector generally, from the upstream, where the batteries or the storage devices, the likes of Json are coming from, manufacturing from that side, funds flow from the downstream, where the end users sort of use these, should I say, services. So the implication of that is when the systems are not affordable, or when you don't have bankable contracts, or you have collection issues, you have a lot of distribution issues, then you have to tend to see a lot of problems. What that does is it chases off a lot of financiers. So deliberately, again, I will not be speaking around maybe low-digit interest rates, single-digit interest rates, and all of that. But I'll just sort of hover around two functional areas that I think we need to address immediately. The first is around standardization. So one of the challenges I see is the barrier to entry is actually very low. And what that does is you have a lot of poorly designed systems. So it generates the perception that the product is not great or that the product does not work. And because a lot of these financiers, number one, don't have physical presence in Nigeria, those that have physical presence in Nigeria have to leverage third-party data points or analysis to be able to have some sort of information about the industry. So the initial perception you have is these things don't work, these things are not bankable and all of that. So those are some of the issues that we need to start to fix. And I think if you compare what has happened around other similar industries, around key infrastructure areas in the country, if you look at manufacturing, if you look at telecommunications, if you look at the fintech space that has attracted a lot of FDI into Nigeria in particular, what you tend to see is that the barrier to entry is a little bit higher. There are a lot of standardizations that need to happen. So you can then maintain quality at a particular level. So the general international community perception about what works in that particular space is a little bit comfortable. So we need to start to move that kind of narrative such that we can have, at the end of the day, solid bankable website contracts that we can then take to a lot of these investors to be able to attract the right funding. The second issue is around credit issues. So I've been in the industry for about 8 years, so I'm very familiar with the entire value chain on the disco side. And I think Mr. Martin is doing a lot of great job around sort of decentralizing what the value chain, especially in Nigeria, looks like. So what you try to see is you see a lot of credit issues. So what happens today, you are going to deploy, so to say, rooftop solar to a company, to an off-taker or an individual user. So you go through naturally what we call credit check processes, but that system is not centralized. So what happens is, yes, you're checking a particular bank account, you see that the guy has the ability to pay back. But what you're not really tracking, which is really tough, is on the willingness to pay back. So other issues may happen along the line. So that centralization of that credit checking process needs to start happening so that we can start to see contracts that perform better. Yes, I agree that a couple of mini grids have been deployed. and the residents are happy. But the question is, what happened 2, 3 years down the line? You have a lot of information around some of them. They just stop paying because they are not deployed for economic or productive use. At the end of the day, somebody like me has to be on this call. I need electricity to charge my laptop. I need to charge my modem. I have to be online. So my requirements are different from that person in the rural village or in some rural area who just needs some few light bulbs and fan that he never really needs anyway. So those are some of the issues that we need to start to address. And I think the third thing I really want to speak about is around collaboration. I feel that the industry cannot evolve if we don't collaborate very, very well. Today, if I need the total number of bank customers in most countries, I can get that data in 2, 3, 5 minutes. But if I want the total number of installed capacity today in any African country, it doesn't exist. So you have to do a lot of analysis, speak to a lot of secondary data points. You don't have that accurate data. So that means that there's not enough information to be able to even make informed decision about the sector. So a lot of collaboration needs to start to happen around how we even structure the business model. So what you see today is a couple of the players will play around the generation, the distribution, the collection, and pack all of that together and approach a financier. But you tend to see that there are companies that are better in collection. That's what they do. They've done it in a lot of sectors. So that collaboration has to happen. There are companies that are better in EPC type contracts. I mean, they have the risk appetite to be able to wait long term for returns on investment. So that kind of collaboration sort of needs to start happening. And I think the fourth thing that I will quickly speak to is around information. So what I also see is that a lot of players don't sort of have the right information on how to tell a story that can attract the right funding, or they are telling the story to the wrong financier. So what happens is you do a lot of work, a lot of financial models, analysis, you present a case to a potential financier, then does it make sense? Then a lot of work has to happen around that awareness. And that's part of the work that I think Rian, REA, obviously this kind of platform is trying to do. And I've sat in a couple of platforms from KPMG, from this day, a couple of other sort of industry drivers that are trying to bring that information awareness to everybody. But that kind of interaction needs to start sort of happening at a very, very large scale. And I think that if we do all of these things well, and we can begin to see a lot of these barriers that you naturally see on the demand side, on the supply side, on the regulatory side, and on the economic side. And maybe another thing I just would like to touch points around is, I like the BOI example that you mentioned. I'm aware of some sort of initiative by back on industry in Nigeria that sort of gives some sort of preference, so to say, to this type of project. But if you look at how we largely attract people, it's based on forex. So can we start to sort of, should I say, lobby, convince, or enter the right room to have conversations where you can have enough forex reserved for people that are trying to innovate in this very, very hard, the industry is very, very hard and challenging. We need to find a way from the government side, maybe that's the only policy side I want to speak to sort of reserve some sort of effects, for people or for companies that are trying to solve some of these problems. And another idea that I also think may start to work, and I don't know if the likes of Json are open to it. So instead of having buckets of individual companies reach out to OEMs, I need X tons or X numbers of batteries, X number of panels, converters, and all of that. Can we all come together, as a unit and place some of these others sort of ones, such that you can then start to achieve economies of scale? You can get better discounts. You can do a lot of other things. And I like the fact that JA Solar has some presence in country. So I think even at the regulatory or the government side, there has to be some incentive for some of these OEMs to come to Nigeria. For example, how easy is it to repatriate funds? So those are some of the issues that I think sort of discourage a lot of people with a lot of big pockets from actually looking at Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Akinsani. That was very excellent as well. Just wanted to respond to a couple of these barriers you had mentioned. So, in regards to the standards, yes, that's definitely one of the problems here in the solar sector. However, there are people who are working on it. So, like the A staff now, the Africa Clean technical assistance facility is working with the Standard Organization of Nigeria to ensure that there's a standard put in place and which we have achieved, and that has been gazetted, the IEC standards, and that wouldn't start until next year just because the Lightning Global still runs till next year. So these are things that we are coming into the sector to see how we can provide solutions. So that's trying to mention that as well, but that's a good mention. Yes, I mean, we need to now go further to seeing how we can enforce that appropriately, so that, yes, that the market does not spoil. Then you also mentioned that users stop paying, and this also boils down to, partly technical and partly demand subsidy on the end user side. Of course, the aftermath of COVID-19 has actually brought a lot of, disaster to the economy, and people are being affected, lost jobs, and can't afford, just to take care of their basic needs, let alone to pay for electricity. So these are things that, so it's a complex situation, and definitely, like you said, collaboration is needed. And with regards to data, we have a couple of donors like NOMAP, GIZ, even staff as well is partnering with the REA to see how we can help them with planning their electrification data. So yes, there's some obsolete data in the sector, but there's huge effort and initiatives that are going into this.
Good.
As you know, the REA is the implementing agency for the Ministry of Power with regards to electrification, renewable energy technologies. So, and they're doing so much. We have the NEP, Nigeria Electrification Project. We have the 5 million solar program that was mentioned earlier by Mr. Martins, and we have the Rural Electrification Fund. So there's just so much going on that I think maybe there needs to be more amplification of information. So there is a lot going on in the sector, and hopefully RIA also share this insight with his members. So just wanted to just few bits. Yes, of course, with the Forex, the fluctuation in the Forex, that is a huge limiting barrier for funds to come in. And so what we're doing now is you can also see that local banks are actually making efforts to seeing how they can support the sectors. Like I know like Sterling Bank, FCMB, they're doing the best they can, and they have actually funded some developers as well. So I know that with the NEP grant and the REF grant, there's a public-private partnership that goes on where the developer brings a certain percentage of equity, and the government gives them grants through the REA, and they go find loans from the bank, and the bank has actually been helping. So there's definitely that area to explore.
Some effort down there.
Yes, but thank you so much. That was excellent. Okay, so we're moving on.
Thank you for sharing your perspective.
Thank you. You're welcome. We're moving on to Mr. Adetunji Romini, CEO of Solar Electric Technologies, as well as the Vice President for the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria. So I would like to ask you, what are the best practices that are adopted by your members, some of the leaders of the rooftop solar sector, and what business models do you think is actually very innovative and should be replicated in the sector? Thank you. I think you're muted, sir.
Sorry about that. One gets carried away once in a while about this. Yes, thank you very much for having me this afternoon, Queen, and to the rest of the panelists. Good afternoon. Solar Quarter, thank you for putting this program together. I mean, considering the fact that it covers the whole of West Africa. I've always viewed our markets beyond Nigeria as West Africa, despite the fact that Nigeria appears to be the largest market. And before we move forward, please, Queen, it's solar centric, not solar electric. All right, I just actually let you have that information as well.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, it's all right. I mean, I know this happened. So thank you very much. I mean, from Martins, Aruge, to the speaker just before me, Akin Sami. I mean, a lot has been said about what is happening in the market. the state of the market, what needs to happen regulatory wise. And what I'm supposed to speak about actually comes out of everything that has been spoken before, in that the regulators, the regulations, the laws are the things that could everything I want to do. Martins dwell heavily. Akinsomi dwell heavily on finance. So any strategy I want to pull together to drive adoption as a project developer have to come out of those two. So far, in Nigeria most especially, what we've seen in leaders is that they were able to come in with deep pockets, in that some of them come in with equities to the tune of almost $50 million to get the business started. A few local partners and players as well who are doing very well right now, like Hanaji. We saw what happened. They attracted investment as well. And we have even within Hanaji at the moment focuses on the MSMEs, while we have a lot of mini-grid players. The point is this: you need investment, otherwise it could be very tough and difficult to really play out. Now, strategically, in terms of pushing methodologies or models that will drive adoption heavily, is that huge upfront cost responsibility to off-takers. A lot of people don't know that. Not until Elon Musk bought over Solar City and then injected funds and totally changed the model whereby off-taker makes 0% equity contribution, sign a long-term contract, the assets are installed on your roof, and then you pay over a long time. Not until he did that did we find out that just between the last 6 years, that's 2015 to date, that over 90% of all solar installations, rooftop installations in America was actually done. So the stage where we are today is actually the stage where America was pre-2015. And guess what? A lot of things can happen without the government involvement. We all recall very well that Obama supported very heavily transitioning to clean energy, most especially solar. So he gave companies who are players and going. Today, my clients, if they need to acquire solar, if they don't have the cash on them, they need to go to the bank. You and I know what the rates are like, over 20%. If you need to match that versus how much comes into their pocket on a daily basis or on a monthly basis, it is pretty tough. So strategically for us, what we need to do as project developers, or what the market leaders have done, is actually very similar. So today, for my C&I clients, I go to them and I say to them clearly, zero capex from you. Don't worry. You've been doing that before, but now I need you to keep your capex. Also, your OPEX, I'm willing to save you between 10 to 30% flat out. So the value proposition is so strong and compelling that the only thing we then worry about is, okay, how do I sign a long-term that will supply me power? You need to ensure all the risks are mitigated. But from what we're seeing in the last 3-5 years, there's been an upward swing in terms of adoption of this technology. As we speak, the manufacturers, almost 70 of their members are fully audited as we speak. The business case is being reviewed by the banks to adopt renewable energy in their mix. And I should also like to emphasize this. Today in Nigeria, solar is about the cheapest. The grid tariff continues to go up. Diesel is going up, petrol is going up. When you're generating your energy from either from diesel or petrol, you're definitely doing well over 150 naira per kilowatt. Today, if I consider the long term of my plants, solar plants, 20 years, I can very well easily sell energy to you at less than 1 cent. That's below 55 naira or below 50 naira per kilowatt hour. So it is no brainer at the moment that it is the way we need to go. Also considering the fact that the grid And I'm sorry to say, I don't see how we're going to be able to fix our grid. We don't have money in this country. Almost 90%, almost 80% of revenue goes to servicing debts. And you need to just go and check our debt profile into the next 10 years. So unless there is a magic in terms of we have other source of revenue, I really don't see how we're going to be able to invest enough to fix the grid. So the solution for us is distributed energy. And I'm very happy about what Lagos State and Exercise Lagos State went through recently, whereby we now have what we call Lagos Electricity Market. Well, I know that the law in quote, everything is Nigeria Electricity Market, but we're at a situation in this country supply, provision, and availability of power to all Nigerians, homeowners, businesses, and industrialists. That should be the focus. So in terms of what project developers could do, we are ready, and it is happening already. Like I did mention, Hanergy and a number of other ones that many of us are definitely aware of. That is what needs to happen. That is the only way. Now, one major problem that needs to be addressed, I'm very happy Akisomi mentioned it, is data. The government also needs to come in and do some things for us. We need data. Today, the banks are possibly unwilling to lend to some homeowners because they do not have adequate data about their clients beyond transactions that happen on their accounts. We need to get to that point whereby, let me try and borrow Martin said earlier about the fact that today, petrol, there is subsidy. Even the energy from the grid, there is subsidy. Can we even just begin to look at exactly the same thing to ensure we begin to transition to renewable energy, to promote distributed energy? And distributed energy in Nigeria anyway is renewable. Taking gas around is not an easy task. We've done enough of diesel and petrol, very dirty fuel. We don't want to promote that any longer. We now have an exact alternative that delivers more value. And we just need to begin to actually manage our funds and transition it to ensure that we're able to grow rooftop solar. Why rooftop solar? It is more secured. It's on my roof. It's on my client's roof. They live in there, they operate in there. Unlike panels set up at a farm, the country is so insecure today. So we get calls from some parts of the country, and the first concern is who's going to be responsible if these panels are vandalized or stolen. Those are the things that we need to factor in. So as developers, like I did say clearly, we need a lot from the government. Today, the funds aren't coming from the banks. They're not really lending. I'm happy, you've mentioned it, Sterling Bank, FCMB, BOI, DBN, a few in terms of what they are doing, but we need more. A lot of local companies today will spring up and do more if they can easily have equity investment, either in the project or in the corporate business itself. So a lot needs to happen to support it. But in terms of business model that works, tested, and it is pretty clear what is going to happen. Energy as a service is what we need. Energy as a service is what's actually going to drive our energy transition and improve access to energy as well as energy for productive use in Nigeria. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to take on questions, from you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. That was well said. Energy as a service is really what we need. Just knowing that the capital is quite enormous for a normal average Nigerian or African to afford. So part payments over the years, stretched out, I think that's the way to go. So thank you so much for your contribution. So I don't know if Mr. Hyder, can you hear us now? I think there's an issue with Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Queen. Yes.
Okay, so I wanted you to just talk more about, seeing that you're the general manager for JA Solar in Africa, what do you think are the possible opportunities and modalities to scale up to the regional and the international corporation. So basically, how do we upscale the solar rooftop industry beyond Nigeria? So how do we scale up in the West African region? How do we scale up in the sub-Saharan region? Only about 42%, of more than 340 million people living in the West African region have access to electricity. So you can see that beyond the shores of Nigeria, there's more potential in these other African countries. So what strategies or opportunities or modalities do you think exist for the solar companies to begin to explore in other African countries? Thank you.
Well, I think first of all, I should greet all the panelists and the participants in this meeting. It's great to have first of all our experts here. So I think there's no new magic things we need to say, but we cannot reinvent the wheels, right? So it's important to see what is the progress that the region has made from West Africa to whatever in Africa. I think the first time when I met, most of the guys who are together with us on these panels was back in I think maybe 2014 or even before that. So when we was meeting that time compared to where we are today, I think there's a big difference compared to where we are today. Of course, if you see the business model that are implemented right now in the industry, it's something which has been already successful in many countries. One of the biggest countries in the region, we never stop saying it, is South Africa. And you can see that basically everybody is moving toward that direction. The same happened in the US when you have basically private taking over the business and taking control on the business. So I think during the question you have asked to some of the panelists was basically what also the government could have done. I think it's important to also see that the government have done a lot. Of course, we are still not satisfied. There's still a lot of improvement to be made, but they are moving toward the right direction. And obviously, it's important to have such type of meeting to be able to readdress the right way for the government to step in. At this stage, what is also important for the government to do is to understand what are the advantages and what are the priorities. In terms of government, it's important for the government to understand that they need to take the position of the referee instead of the position of the player. When the government understands that and understand what are the priorities, sometimes we need to every time drive back the intention of the government, understanding that power, whatever business you are doing, whatever activity you are doing, power is maybe one of the key priorities of your growth. Whether you want to grow in infrastructure, whether you want to grow in manufacturing, whether you want to boost your agriculture field in your country, without power, I don't see any way where you can reach that. So when you set your priority, you are able to define what type of support you need to boost. And nowadays, you mentioned the numbers of people, the percentage of people, you mentioned 42%. I think it's a country is even worse than that, which have access to power. And when you consider that number and you consider education of your population, you understand that there is a vital action to be made. Subsidy on petrol, we have seen it for years and decades in Africa. I think we need to shift, like what Tune was saying, we need to really shift towards subsidy on panels, maybe on what is called on solar generation. The question here, subsidy on solar generation, trust me, it does not go back to the manufacturer, right? It goes back to who? To the population, because the manufacturer set the price. Whatever you subsidize or not, the price is set. The shipment in XYZ country do not change because you have made your subsidy. Your VAT will just add up to the cost that the population is going to pay for it. So it's important to understand what are the priorities and what need to be changed. So again, to me, I really believe that all the key players are fighting super hard. I can see where we stand today, but there's a lot of new regulation to be put in place, and the referee, as it's just to end, the referee need to take back his position of regulator when they try to go toward the advantage of what are the priorities to be achieved for that country.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Hader. Yes, the government has done a lot, and honestly, we need to, clap for them. The government has put a lot of policies in place and currently working on, like there's the VAT modification order, to reduce the tax on certain solar components. So they are doing a lot. We must acknowledge that, and obviously the private sector needs to also contribute to that as well. Moving on to Mr. Edwin, who is Mr. Edwin, are you there, please?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I think my system froze a bit. Thank you. Mr. Edwin Arends, sorry about that, who is the Managing Director for AB Solar Africa. I must say that I've heard this name quite, it's quite, so I would like to understand with regards to current installed capacity for the solar sector in Nigeria, seeing that your company is across Africa, and I'm sure you have, economy of scale in terms of your product, services, and offerings. What do you think is the plan to achieve even a larger scale, just to meet the policies in place, such as the one, for example, the Renewable Energy Master Plan talks about deploying 500 megawatt of solar by 2025, and basically also the government's target to electrify Nigeria by 2024 as 100% electricity, or even the SE4All's target to electrify the whole country by 2030. So what do you really think are strategies we can put in place to achieve this target faster? Because at the point we're going, there's no way we can meet those targets. So what do you think your company is doing, or what also other companies can do to scale this up even further? And then secondly, in terms of tariff, knowing that there isn't one fixed tariff for the solar sector, what do you think are the advantages with economy of scale in terms of tariff? Thank you.
Okay, that's a big question. I think first of all I want to explain. I think I'm a little bit of the strange duck in this pool. We are mainly active in Ghana, Togo. We do some Benin, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Gambia. So Nigeria is a little bit off limits up till now. We do have some projects upcoming in Nigeria. So my knowledge of how things are going in Nigeria is not that advanced. I can explain what's going on in Ghana. And I think Ghana has got the same issues with as Nigeria, also for putting up renewable energy. And I must say, if you look at, I think Nigeria is more advanced than other countries in the western part. If you take Ghana as example, we do mainly industrial and commercial solar installations, and so we build installations from 200 kilowatt up to 5 megawatt. But we definitely see a big struggle government-wise. If you, for example, in Ghana, the PPAs are already stopped for the last 18 months, so just before COVID, all the PPAs were put on hold, and that is up till today still the case. So that means any project above 500 kilowatt that wants to go for a PPA finance, is just waiting. And so we are sitting on what's now 7.5 megawatt on projects that we need to build. And those projects are already there for more than a year, just waiting for governmental approval. That we can start. So that's for us one of the big hurdles and challenges is to get the government also in the same alignment. Also, if you look at Ghana, they also talk about the 2030 goals. That we need to go for renewable energy and to step up on that scale. But up to now, on the other hand, they also make sure we don't get into those large-scale solar projects, because the government is holding back to that one. So for us, it's a difficult way to look at and to see how to get things approved. It looks like PPAs are coming now again. There's new board and energy commission, so we are hopefully seeing some progress in that part. On the other hand, the positive thing that we see for the West African market, we have quite some developers who are available. So we have a pool of developers who can finance solar projects. So that's our approach anyway. And so all our projects that we are approaching is with a finance solution that makes it much easier for the customer. We do all the credit checks, full due diligence on projects, and that works actually very fine. So up to 500 kilowatt we can finance without any hurdles, no restrictions on certification, so that's not a problem. But if you go above, then it gives a problem. If you look at a tariff, I think tariff is always the most difficult part to look at. I think tariff is project specific. There's a lot of input that's coming into these kind of projects, and yeah, it's very hard to say what kind of a tariff should be in. I'm not sure how it's in Nigeria, if there's any feed-in tariff. I don't expect there is, same as in Ghana. But from my knowledge, from what we had in Europe, there was also a tariff set in the far past. So we started solar 2009 in Europe. Then the tariffs were set up for 100%, but it very fast went back. Because you can see when you put out a tariff on a feed-in tariff, as for example, you cannot expect for governments to pay 100% on a tariff. So that's always something that will, yeah, how you say that? I think governments need to learn how to anticipate on renewable energy and how it can be a good mix of revenue for customers and for government.
Thank you
Does
so
that
much.
answer your question a little bit?
Yes, I mean, it definitely does. Ghana is a sister country to Nigeria, so we can relate. And Africa as a whole, the West African region, we have a lot of similarities, especially with regards to lack of access to electricity. So definitely, I can see the issue with regards to scaling up the solar sector because of the PPA agreements and the delays from the government. But these are just basically part of the process, and to take it in good faith that we need more perseverance from people like you, from other solar companies. It's not doable. It is doable. It's achievable. And I know in Nigeria particularly, there are huge megawatts of projects that are currently going on now, and I know that it's a possibility. It just takes.
Sorry, the line was breaking up.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Mr.
Okay,
Edwin.
I missed a part of Queen's speech.
Okay, if you don't mind muting yourself, I think that maybe you can hear me a lot better. Okay, I'm not sure if you've muted yourself just yet, but because when you mute, then the feedback, the sound feedback doesn't affect you, Mr. Edwin. Oh, there we go. All right, so I was just saying that Nigeria, Ghana, we're still in the same West Africa region, and so the same challenges and barriers are quite obtainable in both countries and also in other West African countries as well. A-Staff, we have presence in 14 countries in Africa, and I can tell you that everybody is facing similar challenges, and so definitely there's need for the government to come in, but the government cannot achieve this 100%. The donors are here in the space, the UK government, the US government, we have the French government, we have the German government, and the EU all coming together to see how we can help the solar sector grow. And so far, so good. They have done great work. We are doing great work, like I mentioned earlier, in partnership with REA and standards, and even with the Lagos State that was mentioned by Mr. Adetunji. So we helped in developing their recent Lagos electricity policy that just came in, but on the side of the off-grid space. So we are doing a lot. I feel like one of the major issue I'm hearing over and over again is that there's lack of information dissemination. So people are not really aware of what is happening in the sector. And I believe that one of the challenges Mr. Edwin is facing in regards to scaling the solar market in terms of not just maybe 100 kilowatts, but higher megawatts and even gigawatt, it's because of the government bureaucracies. So I'm saying that you should expect that to be the case, but just basically there needs to be more perseverance, I believe, and more awareness on the benefits that it offers. So I feel like the government is doing great work so far, but more is required to scale up even further. In Nigeria, we have huge solar farms that are currently in the pipeline, particularly in the north, I think Kano or Uchikawa. And so it's achievable. It can be done in Ghana, it can be done anywhere else. And so basically we need to be able to have access to more structured finance, international finance, to be able to achieve that. So we look forward to having more of you foreign companies come into the sector to see how we can achieve mass scale of the solar deployment. We have a comment here from Mr. Remy Lekom-Ayo, and he said his question is, how can we implement a form of net metering system where the excess energy can be sent or sold back to the national grid and the users are credited, thereby reducing their future electric bill during non-peak period? And he also said that excess energy generation during peak period is quite common with solar energy systems, both residential and mini grid. So is there anybody on the panel that would love to give a shot this question?
Well, I think that the implementation is not the most difficult part of it. It's more the regulatory part of it. That's what we see in Ghana as well. Ghana already gave approval of net metering, I think 4 years ago. By law, it's in place. But because of external communications between electricity companies who see solar as a as a taker of revenue, and they see it really as a competition to the electricity market in Ghana. So I think most important is to get governments in line with the IPPs who give the energy to come to good conclusions. I think that is the main hurdle to take.
Thank you so much, Mr. Edwin. I hope that question was answered. Is there anybody who wants to jump on to answer this as well? Any other further comments?
Well, if I will allow, I will add a little bit just on what Edwin has said. I mean, if you take a country like Mauritius, for instance, they have been implemented that, but they have stopped. The reason behind it is sometimes important to understand, actually, because when you say net metering, you mean that you have very, let's say, a good grid to be able to take extra power without affecting the existing grid, right? So it's important that also the government should understand that when you want to implement such type of regulatory, you need to ensure that the place you implemented that has enough capacity to be taken, because don't forget that the power which comes today might not be the same as the one that you get tomorrow. So in terms of grid impact study, there's a lot of details to be done, in a way to understand if or not you can do it. Now, the second point of it is also to understand the position of the government, as Edwin have said. A lot of governments sometimes failed, like there's a kind of competition between them. But I believe if they sit back in a place of regulator, they have a possibility to make extra revenue from that, like maybe implementing some embedded generation to allow them for, I mean, there's many ways to set a type of regulation to not affect the government operations so far. So it's a matter of understanding what type of regulation we want to do and what type of target we want to set.
Thank you very much. So I think at this stage, there are no further questions to ask. But I'm just going to go back through the panelists and have them give. Okay, so sorry, just a question came in by Mr. Adetunji. He said, what is the state of corporate PPAs, energy as a service in other parts of West Africa? Okay, seeing that we have far spent our time, I'm sure that we can follow up with the other panelists. I'm sure they are reachable by LinkedIn, but I wanted to give a 30 seconds chance to every panelist just to give their last, take, conclusion, recommendations, or other comments. Thank you. Let's start with Mr. Edwin. Thank you. 30 seconds.
Okay, good one. Let's hope that we get government so far to join together in this renewable energy part and are willing to take a further step in getting these solar projects implemented. I think that would be the main goal. I think development-wise, there's plenty of opportunities there. Money is available, so let's start building.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hyder?
Yes.
Mr. Hyder? Okay, I think there's some sound issues there. Okay, let's go to Mr. Adetunji.
Yes, Aida is muted, that's why. Anyway,
can you hear me?
That's a word for me.
Okay, let me drop now.
That's a word for me. We need investments. The government needs to come in. The private sector needs to come in as well. The entire ecosystem needs to. Energy transition can happen very fast in West Africa from all sorts of analysis and some that I have done personally. And I'm just going to urge the government to engage more with the organized private sector to ensure that by year 2030 latest, this region of the continent will no longer be referred to as a dark continent. The opportunities are immense. There are many jobs to create. The environmental impact in terms of savings for the environment are huge. And then we can create a lot of wealth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Hyder, can you come on now?
Yes, I was just saying, I just want to give a big respect to all this guy who has been there for long. I did to Energy, Edwin, Adetunji. It's not easy to be playing in that industry where time to time, for years you are having a serious challenge with the government. Despite of that, they keep being in the industry. And for me, it's just to be respect to them. And I really believe that sooner or later, they'll be very compensated from that and perseverance. So that's just my word.
Thank you. Can we move to Mr. Martins, please?
Thank you very much. I think for me, in terms of final words, I would say that the industry also needs to come together, clearly articulate what, from their own perspective, will be the game changer. The focus of government is drawn in various and several directions. If you do not take the bull by the horn, articulate what you think are policies that would change the dynamic in the market and then actively engage government to see that change brought about. We probably will just begin to continue to run in circles for the next few years. And all of a sudden, 2030 will be upon us, and none of those targets will be met. It's in everyone's interest for us to be deliberate about increasing the potential for solar energy in Nigeria and West Africa as a whole. It's just also taking deliberate actions to get to that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Akin Somi.
My parting words are very simple. Our planet must survive. Sustainability is very important. Our approach to large-scale energy generation is going to negatively impact on our planet. So it is therefore everybody's responsibility, every stakeholders, to ensure that we drive the right narratives, the right conversations, the right collaboration to drive the kind of planet that we want to live in. Thank you again, everyone, for such engaging and informative session.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was great hearing from you, just picking your brain and getting knowledge and insights and recommendation. Particularly wanted to highlight the one about charging the fossil fuel industries and taking that money and fueling it into the renewable energy. That's brilliant. That's a good idea. I think government should definitely take into consideration, as well as demand subsidies strategy, which we are currently working on with the REA. So I like that comment in particular. But all in all, everyone's insights and recommendations were up to par. I definitely encourage everyone to please reach out to Mr. Martins for his PowerPoint. That was very brilliant as well. Everybody, just want to thank you for the time, and I look forward to engaging with you sometime in the future. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much, all our
Okay.
esteemed
Thank you.
panelists, for such an insightful session, sparing your precious time and extending the support to this event. Queen ma'am, thank you for moderating the session today. So we will be taking a 10 minutes networking break, and we will be back with the second session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back, attendees. Requesting my team to play the video. welcome back all the attendees. Thank you for joining us. Let's begin with our second session, Tech Advancements Constructing Profitable Projects. Session experts who have joined us today are Ms. Glory Ogebu, who is the founder and CEO of Renewable Energy Technology Training Institute, and she is also the session chair for today. Mr. Kolawale Akinboy, who is the country manager of Vesta Solar, Mr. Prince Ojeabulu, who is the head of operation Rensource Energy, Mr. Hader Komakpai, who is the GM of Africa J Solar. So now I would like to hand it over to Ms. Glory.
Of course, thank you very much, Priyanshi. Hi, everyone. You're welcome to the call today. We're going to be discussing on the topic tech advancements, constructing profitable projects. And so, without wasting much of your time, we're going to be going on to the very first question. Meanwhile, I think this is a very timely conversation around profitability in discussing the advancements in the renewable energy sector, especially solar. And so it's a very important thing to learn what companies have been able to do, how companies have been able to stay profitable, what is the different thing that has happened, how can other young people here, I know about so many young renewable energy professionals on the call, how can we all reach that space between delivering the project and making a profit? So we're going to be exploring all of that through the questions. Once again, I welcome Mr. Kolawole Akinboye, Mr. Prince Ojeabulu, and we were supposed to have one extra person on the call who I cannot see now, Mr. Abu Raymond Ade. So I want to confirm from the host if this person is joining the call or there is a representative. So I can see Mr. Hadi on the call as well. So we're just going to start off with the very first question. I just want to ask, and I'm throwing it open to all the panelists. Now, what do you think are the key engineering challenges faced in designing of the projects? I think this is a very interesting question, talking about solar rooftops. I work at the Renewable Energy Tech Training Institute, and I see how every time that we train our participants, this comes up as a question, this comes up as a challenge. What types of equipment, what types of installation tools? What would happen if this happens to the roof? What can change? What are the latest trends? So what are the key engineering challenges faced in designing these projects? And by these projects, we're looking at different types of projects, commercial, totally off-grid, rooftop, and for homes. So I'll start with the first person I can see on my screen, Mr. Kolawole. But I think, Mr. Kolawole, you mentioned that someone else will be staying in your place. Am I correct?
No, that wasn't me.
Okay. So please, can you start this conversation? What are your thoughts? What are these key engineering challenges faced in designing the projects? You can attempt it from a general holistic perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Glory. And thank you, SolarRoofs, for Solar Quarter, for inviting me for this. Now, what are the key engineering challenges, key design engineering challenges in renewable energy projects? I would group them under two sections. There are the detail-oriented problems, and then there are the big picture problems. Now, a lot of times, what I've noticed is that engineers and technical people like to solve the very detail-oriented problems, and then they don't see the big picture problems. When you want to solve the problems, engineering challenges, engineering problems with renewable energy projects, you have to solve both detail-oriented problems and big picture problems at the same time. So what are some detail-oriented problems? Now, even when you look at these problems, a lot of these problems stem for a lack of proper training and a lack of standards that we've had over the years, which have been getting improved over time. Now, what are these detail-oriented problems and challenges that we sometimes face? Details are what will be the voltage of the battery bank you would use? What is the voltage of the panels you would use? What is the size of the cable you should use between the solar panels and the charge controller? What is the size of, what kind of connectors should you use in connecting the solar panels to each other in a renewable energy project? What kind of electrical panel should you use when you come downstream of the solar panels? What kind of electric panel should you use to connect between the solar installation you have, that renewable energy installation you have, and the end user? What kind of metering should you implement on the site? What are the details the meter must be able to throw out? Those are some detail-oriented problems. You are looking at, okay, even when you are even designing that site, how much space is on the roof? Where would you put a walkway on that roof when you are climbing the roof? At what place would you climb the roof to ensure that you don't damage the panels when you are putting them on the roof? Challenges around how do you get the panels in rooftop projects from the floor to the roof? That's a detail-oriented problem. Are you going to pull them up with a pulley system? Are you going to lift them on a ladder and carry them one by one all the way to the roof? How do you do that without damaging panels in the process? Where do you mount the inverters that you buy? Are they inverters that can be mounted on the floor, or are they inverters that need to mount on the wall? Does the wall have the bearing capacity to carry those inverters? Those are detail-oriented problems. Now, what are the other challenges we face that are more high-level challenges? High-level challenges have to do with, you are designing this project. Where are you designing the project? What is your expectation of yield as concerning the project? What was your assumption? When you assume the yield for this project, what database did you use to assume the yield for this renewable energy project? You made an assumption for how much energy this project is going to deliver over the next year. So we're talking about, okay, if you made an assumption for the energy that will be delivered over the year, how much have you decided to charge for that energy? How much have you assumed maintenance would be? Now, maintenance ties back into the decisions you make around the installation. How much money have you budgeted? That's a key design challenge. How much money have you budgeted for the equipment? So that will determine the kind of equipment you would use. So even when you are going into the details of the voltage, the size, and all of that, what's the big budget? What's the big picture? How much money are you prepared to spend? The money you are prepared to spend, when you put it into your business model, does it make you money at the end of things? Does it match up? And the maintenance that equipment requires, because specific equipment you use requires specific maintenance. The maintenance that equipment requires, how much money are you going to spend on that maintenance? And does that maintenance make sense? That's not in the detail, that's in the big picture. So you need to be able to look at that big picture and understand how that project would make sense. What are the challenges I need to solve on the money side? What are the challenges I need to solve on the roof side? What kind of roof do they have? So what kind of mounting structures that are available for that kind of roof? Where do I get them? What is the lead time for those mounting systems and mounting structures to get in country? What is the duty payment on that particular mounting structure? What are the spaces I have to make money in bringing this equipment in? So how many people do I require to install this number of panels in the timeline I have, so that I understand how much money it's going to cost me to install those panels, and what is the technical level those people need to be in? Do you need only one person that is very technically smart, and then you have a lot of people that are just laborers, or you need a lot more? So the complexity of the equipment determines the complexity of the knowledge of the people that need to install that equipment. How are you going to do your quality control when you do the installation? How are you going to do your commissioning? Who's going to do the commissioning? What time are they going to do the commissioning? What tools do they require to do the commissioning? The challenges are huge. So you have those big picture challenges, then you have detail-oriented challenges. And for you to be able to solve renewable energy projects properly and deliver the right quality, the right value of renewable energy projects, you need to be able to solve both the big picture challenges and the detail-oriented challenges. Right now, we solve a lot more of detail-oriented challenges, forgetting the big picture challenge, and then we run into problems. Thank you.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you very much. And I love what you said about staffing. I think you've said everything. I was going to make a comment. What about staffing? And then you said it right there. Staffing the people required, what should be their qualifications, right? So thank you very much for that, Mr. Kolawole. So we'll go over to the next person. Mr. Prince Ojabulu. What do you think are some of the engineering challenges when constructing? Oh, excuse me. Yes, yes, that was the first question. I was a little bit confused. What are the key engineering challenges faced in designing the project? So designing the project, right? I think that is a little bit different from implementing the project, right? I think so. So, but feel free to attempt the question from either of the ways. So, you have the floor now, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Glory, and thanks so much to the Solar Quarter team for putting together this amazing event. So if I would speak a bit to it, I think in my experience, if you look at through the business activity sequence, I think one of the major challenges in designing the project is um, since there is no standardized way right now, you see a lot of mismatch in that sequence. Um, First of all, you're building any project. The aim of the project at the end of the day is that it's supposed to be a profitable project. So you are supposed to design to make sure it's profitable. So if there are a few inputs on different sides, that you should be able to evaluate to see. One key thing for me, I think, is really the financials around it, and then the assumptions that get you to where you are. So typically, I think one of the few things you start seeing immediately, or you will need to do immediately, is you start accessing the financial viability of whatever project that you're trying to design. Because if those things are not, if the assumptions are not solid enough, you're talking about a renewable project that's going to be staying maybe for a minimum of 20 years, 30 years, depending on exactly what it is. If it's a mini grid, if it's a CNI. So the few key things I think are really around that financial metrics or the inputs that you need to be looking at is what is your assumption around what the yield is going to look like, because that informs a lot around what the production of the plant is going to look like versus how much electricity that whatever client you're building for is going to be paying for. So if you follow that from that first principle, it's easy to start off that, and then dovetail into Kola has just spoken, dovetail into more details. So what you basically see is a lot of approach around the minute details rather than those high level details around if is this project really profitable. And in my experience, we have assessed a dozen of projects. By the time you run the numbers to check, what's the viability of this project, whether it's being an equity only scenario, a mix of debt or equity, or a debt alone scenario, you see that it's not the metrics don't add up. So attempting to do such kind of project at the end of the day for whoever you're doing it for, it turns out to be it doesn't turn out to be a profitable venture. So I think those are the few things. And I think another thing which is really solid is there's little to no the metrics for the O&M. There's little to know. So what I see a lot is that a lot of people just assume without looking at the nuance on what the cost for O&M is going to look like. And in my experience, that hurts a lot badly, because you turn out to maybe build a mini grid, and then you find out that what you had budgeted for in terms of the amount of money you would spend in O&M, it's maybe like 3 times or 4 times the size. And that's because you haven't looked at that nuance of what OEM am I using? What equipment manufacturer am I using to build this project? What does it cost to maintain this? What's my approach to building, and how does that impact on that cost? So for me, in summary, I think those key assumptions are very, very important to really scope out the project itself before you then delve into the minute details around what's the roof integrity, what equipment am I going to use, and so on and so forth. So I hope I've been able to at least summarize my point. Thank you.
Oh, of course you have. Thank you, Mr. Prince. Um, I think it's very interesting, especially talking about assumptions, and assumptions. I hear the word over and over again. But before I make my comment, I'd like to call on the third person, Mr. Hadi, Mr. Hardy Kumabai, to ask him what are the engineering challenges. I think that our first and second speakers have done a good justice to that, but maybe Mr. Hadi still has some things to add. You have the floor now, sir.
Hi, Glory. And look, I will not deviate at all from what has been said already. The only thing that I would like to say is it's important to not, especially at the early stage, put together engineering and cost. Why I'm saying that we have seen a lot of deviation in engineering just because of cost. Um, the main reason of that is that it's important that certain standards of engineering is set prior, even moving toward as appreciation between cost and advantage. That help at least to set a kind of requirement to whatever need to be done for risk mitigation. I would also invite, I mean, soon, I think a couple of weeks or maybe months, there will be guidance on EPC, mentoring, and engineering should be set by Solar Europe, which I believe will be out very soon. Um, Another point is, I mean, from what Kolawale have said on the engineering, of course, you have the, let's say, the theoretical part of it, which is before the construction. It's not completely theoretical, but it's also between a lot of detail because you need to go through many aspects of your design to set what you want to do, and also you need to consider the construction phase. Well, construction phase and engineering, I mean, for me, I like to put some time all that separate. Engineering phase separate, and construction phase separate, also procurement cost separate. I like to do it that way. So it helps our needs to put more clarity on the roles of each phase and the duties we should supposed to expect from that. So basically, that's my comment for now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hadir. So I was talking about the assumptions and assumptions. I hear a lot of you saying assumptions. And I know this is not even in the questions that I was sent to, but I think we can address it. As engineers, we make all of these assumptions, right? And what happens when the output is not like we assumed, or it's not like we thought, or it's not like we planned? What do you think? I mean, how have you dealt with that? So you make these assumptions, you plan all of these things. Of course, in business, it doesn't always happen in that way. What can you share with the listeners today about how you have handled something like that? Starting with Mr. Kolawole. So I'd like to hear from all three speakers on this. Thank you.
All right, Glory. Thank you. Yes. How do you cope when things do not work exactly as you assumed they would? Now, there's a saying that, but it's more of a war saying, that the best laid plans and strategies, they last only as long as the first bullet is fired. And a lot of times, as engineers, as experienced engineers, we work with that same mindset. We know that our best laid plans last only as long as when you commence the project. So you make an assumption about the community in which you are going to install that project. You made an assumption about how receptive that community would be. You've had all the engagements, you've done all of that, but then you go in there and then the community is not as receptive as you assumed. So that means that because of that, you assume that there would be a sort of rent you would pay at a particular amount. So that's why you need to put in, how you do it is what we call risk mitigation. So then you mitigate your risk in different aspects. You mitigate your risk with money. Sometimes you mitigate your risk by having a backup plan for everything. So you're like, okay, you know what? And Nigeria is a very funny country because, for example, for anybody that has done projects in Nigeria, moving equipment from one place to another is like rocket science. You know, you say, okay, this equipment will arrive on site by 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning. I have not seen any engineer that has easily achieved that on multiple projects. Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, you want to move it from Lagos to Makurdi or from Port Harcourt to Kano, and you expect that it will arrive 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning. You are joking. It means you haven't done projects in Nigeria before. So you need to plan for, okay, you know what, the equipment does not arrive when it's supposed to arrive, but you have staff already on site. So you are paying people that are not working and you are paying them for 2-3 days. So you have to already have mitigated financially for some things. You mitigate operationally for some things. You mitigate in your project management by putting a backup plan for everything that you do. And then at the end of the day, it's about how fast you can react, how fast you can react to changes, how fast you can think on your feet, how experienced you are at dealing with different challenges, when you know when you want to dive in and when you want to step back and think more before you provide a solution. Those are the things you learn over time. And thankfully, a lot of companies, a lot of engineers have done many projects over the last decade. So we're getting better at it, you know, and that's what I have to say.
Thank you. It has to do with how fast you can jump to solve that problem. Thank you very much. So we go over to Mr. Prince. Very briefly, please tell us how you've been able to handle an assumption that failed. What have you been able to do? I know it's a trick. It sounds like a trick question, but please, I need a lot of the people listening to this call to understand that. Thank you.
Okay, so I mean, I'll just piggyback on Kola's point, and I and Kola have worked together before, so I think we can speak. I can speak from that understanding that you need to be quick, and you need to anticipate anything. You know, a case in point is one of the mini grids that we have built at Rensos, where we went in with a lot of assumptions, and it turns out that when you're into the project, those assumptions were squashed, and you know, we have to quickly move around and change strategy on exactly what we need to do, both commercially and technically. I give one quick example. In one of our projects, we deployed AMI technology, you know, and then we're running these smart meters on site, and it turns out that those smart meters will not work. They work for a use case, but they develop some issues. So they're working with some kind of frequency, and then there's a lot of metallic structure in where we have deployed, so it makes it difficult. And then we have to go back to redo almost the whole deployment in its entirety. And I mean, that's one of the lessons learned. And it's not that we quickly figured out that was the problem. You know, there had to be some testing all the way to find out exactly why that is even occurring, working with the OEMs, which I'm going to emphasize very, very soon, when we maybe address other discussion topics, and then identifying exactly what these issues are, and then fixing them. So I think one thing is, which is most paramount, is you must be ready for anything. Especially in Nigeria, and I think even around West Africa, while building projects, you need to be ready. Whatever assumptions that you have taken in, even after technical site surveys and all that, whatever assumptions that you have taken in going into those projects, be ready to have those assumptions change at any time, and have backup plans, have backup to those backup plans, and you know, you solve them in an agile manner as they come.
Thank you very much. Quickly, let's move on to Mr. Hadiri. Please, sir, can you share with us how you have been able to handle an assumption failed?
Yes.
I know it's a funny question. Yes.
Yes, I mean, what to say is, I mean, we as you know, we don't do projects mostly in the market, but we work very closely with many project maker and EPCs, IPP, and SYZ. And the reason why you can see JA, for instance, working closely with some local partners is because we understand that there is two different things between experience and between someone who have done the work before and someone who have not done the work before. someone who understands the local situation. I think President Kolawole, I think from what they have said, you can understand this guy have done things in the past. You can understand that they understand the challenge of that region. So it's important sometimes to understand absorption. For me, it's just a guy who's sitting behind the office and then who think things supposed to happen that way. But when you take two different proposals, you can definitely think, and you can definitely see from it who understands his local content and who do not. There's one word that Colin has said, risk mitigation. That's what it's just about. Because the question here is doing a project wise, you need to feel like, I mean, for someone who has experience, we definitely consider many different type of situation that they can address to. Now, coming back to materials, it's very easy to say, okay, I'm going to spec this XYZ production. Something which we've seen, which is a little bit dangerous recently, is companies sometimes try to be very aggressive because obviously there's a competition. And when it comes to aggressiveness, people try to assume the best when they are making an offer to a customer. I mean, from my side, every time I tell all my customers, you better don't try to be too aggressive. Because being that, sometimes it do not happen that way, but sometimes you need to impress, right? So sometimes you can see some company try to impress. It's good to impress, but honestly, you need to really to consider the risk behind it, because again, once you go in the wrong way, you are in a very difficult situation that's very difficult to solve. Yes.
Thank you very much. I really like that. When you are trying to impress, please be as modest as possible, be as honest as possible. That's a very strong point. Thank you, Mr. Hadir. So quickly, I'll go on to Mr. Prince immediately to a question on procurement. Procurements. Now, when we are talking about procurement and when we're trying to review tech advancements, how the question here is selecting best modules and inverter technology for rooftop projects. And I'm glad you've already touched on this subject a little bit, Mr. Prince. So now let's just delve into it. What are the procuring all of these materials for large projects, commercial projects? What do we need to look out for? What do we need to have in mind when looking out for the best, when thinking about best practices, when looking at best products, recommendations, and things like that? So to read out the question in one line, selecting best module and inverter technology for rooftop projects. We're listening to you now.
Okay, so I think this is a very, very key and important topic. Thank you, Glory, and I'll just speak a bit about it. One thing I mean, thanks to the most of the OEMs like we have today, like Json, who are really focusing on the African market and even sub-Saharan Africa, and it gives a whole lot of, it eases out a lot of supply chain conversations and procurement conversations. Yeah, however, the challenges are quite high. I think in the first session, one of the speakers alluded to the fact around putting an idea out there of all players in the industry, maybe trying to come together to see how we could develop economies of scale, and in the procurement side of things. Now, I feel that's also a very, very good thing, but and it addresses this specific issue. Now, there are just a few of the OEMs who have presence in Nigeria, for instance, and it becomes, although that's changing. I mean, a few years ago it wasn't the case, but now that's changing because the industry is really opening up. The growth rate is quite fast, but I mean, there is room for much more. Now, procurement is one of the biggest headache. I think is the biggest, if I would say so, because the implementation of solar projects, especially in this climate, is, yes, it's technical, but it's doable. is not that difficult. I mean, if you have your designs and everything ready, you go to site, you mobilize, you build, you find out if there are there are issues on the way. You try to deal with them as they come. However, on the procurement side of things is a different ballgame all entirely, and that's because it's lead times, other times for a lot of these equipment are never stable. You never have any of these things in country, and then the size that a lot of the players in the industry request for is really not commercially viable per se. Although that is going to change as we are seeing because of the growth rate as it proliferates, and then adoption becomes higher and higher, it gets better. However, there are a few things I think that everyone needs to take note of. One thing I think that's very much neglected during construction, especially on the construction side, even on the procurement side, is what is this O&M that OEM that you're working with? How how are they, or how are they going to be in the O&M phase? Remember, you construct a solar project, is going to be there for 25 years or 20 years. And you might be operating it, you might not. But however way, it's going to be operated for that long. So it means you have to have OEMs who are responsive enough. And I think in my experience, that's one of the things that everyone should look out for. Which OEMs do we have that are responsive, have presence in Nigeria? Those things are quite important. I recall in our own case, a few years ago, after installation of our equipment, we were working with one of the OEMs, and then our warranty process meant that we had to ship whatever we had here in Nigeria down to Europe. And then it's shipped back. And then we're bearing the cost of shipment and, all the whole, everything that's associated with that. And over time, that gradually started changing, and then they started getting technical partners in Nigeria that you could work with, places that in Lagos you could go to, and then get issues fixed quickly. So I think one key thing is the ability of the OEMs, the availability of these OEMs going forward, because you procure something from them, you would expect that, or you would want to, that during the operation or the O&M phase of the project, you'll be able to reach back to them for warranties, for technical support, and so on and so forth. So I think that is very, very, very key. Great thing also, I think, is with the technological advancements in the sector, economies of scale would be achieved very soon. LCO is reducing at an alarming rate, and that helps how the amount of issues that you might experience if while running or trying to build a renewable project or a solar project, a solar roof project. So I think those things are a few things. I don't think it would be, there are a lot of names out there, and I think all of them, in terms of their durability, ability to work, they're very much perfect in my experience. What I think stands out are these few things I've pointed out, and I think they're very, very important, because down the line, a lot of renewable projects are not that old. So down the line, while you are in the O&M phase, you start experiencing issues. You want a responsive OEM partner to work with you through that process. You want warranties to be very, very much easy. You don't want to spend so much amount of money during that period. So those are the things you should consider the most.
Wow, thank you very much. What is the availability, reachability, and reliability of the OEM? It plays a major role in the sustainability of the projects. Thank you, Mr. Prince. And now to the rest of the panelists, I'm now beginning to ask individual questions for the panelists, and I've just started with Mr. Prince. So I'll quickly go over to Mr. Kolawole. And your question is, Okay, looking at cost management, because now we have talked about procurement, right? Looking at cost management, reducing project costs and improving lifetime profitability. Taking a look at cost management, how do we reduce project costs and improve lifetime profitability? So you have the floor now to address that now, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. How do you reduce project costs and improve the lifetime profitability of a renewable energy project? A few things you have to do, of course. It's not exactly rocket science, but you just have to take deliberate steps. The first thing you do is to do resource planning. You need to ascertain what you would need in the future. So what it means is that you need to ascertain. So, for example, you have a project, you must be able to, at the beginning of the project, do um, exact projection of how the resources you would need. And when I say resources, it comes from immaterial resources to material resources to human resources and all of that. You must make proper projections. A lot of times, people make projections when they are planning their resources according to how much what they want the figures to look like. So if you want figures to look a particular way, then you say, oh, I should be able to do this. Now, I know that resource planning in a country like Nigeria can be hard because when you now start planning for, let's say, material resources, and then you say, okay, I'm going to need this kind of resources in 5 years' time. At what cost are you going to put on those resources? Which brings me to my next point, your cost estimation. When you've done your resource planning and you've determined, okay, these are the number of people I'm going to need in year one. And because it's a very long-term project you're planning, 10 years, 15 years, 20, 25 years, you need to be able to know how many people you are going to need as you're expanding the project, be it a mini-grid project, a grid-tied solar project, be it a standalone off-grid project. What are going to be what are the needs you would require over time? So as equipment gets weaker, as equipment starts to lose its ability to be up all the time, before you change those equipment, will your maintenance increase? Would your number of people in maintenance increase? Some of the things you need to plan in resources are the tools you would use. Sometimes we plan and then we don't plan tools. People are not going to go to site and or go to fix problems or go to solve issues or go to maintain sites with their teeth or with their bare hands. They will need the right tools. If you use the right tools for the right tasks, your equipment would last longer, your people will be less frustrated, and then you have planned properly for the project. So proper resource planning means you put in the right equipment at the beginning, you put in the right manpower at the beginning, you do the right immaterial planning. And I mean, in terms of getting the buy-in of people that could affect that project from the beginning, you allocate resources into getting that buy-in. And then you then plan for the lifetime of the project. You're not just going to do a project because we get very happy, we take a picture of a completed project and we say, wonderful, project done, electricity is flowing. Electricity is flowing, but for how long? Electricity flows for 1 year, for 2 years. A storm happens, all of a sudden it's no more flowing. There's a surge, everything is gone. The earthing wasn't well done because you didn't plan your resources properly. Then you're unable to maintain the site because you find out that you planned only one person to maintain 3 sites and then the resource planning was wrong. And now you have to have 3 people and then the budget is out of whack and you're no more making money. Resource planning, very important. Cost estimation, very, very important. How do you estimate your costs? You have to be very realistic with your estimation. So, for example, if you are bringing in, and I refer back to what Prince was talking about when he spoke about supply chain management. When you are importing equipment, what is your assumption for freight costs? For example, freight costs in the last year have doubled when it comes to moving things in from China, Germany, or anywhere else. So freight costs have doubled. Have you planned for those? Have you estimated those changes in costs? And what of the costs you would meet at the ports? Are you sure that the line you've chosen on the cost you've chosen for the duty payment you would pay on that equipment is the right cost? Or when you get to the port, you find out that, oh, you estimated wrong, and instead of paying 5%, you're meant to pay 20%, and all of a sudden everything is messed up. And then you have demurrage at the port, your equipment can't come out, your project is delayed. Issues. You need to estimate properly. When you estimate cost, and not just estimation, because in cost estimation, you estimate according to time. So you are saying this estimate of cost will come in at this exact time. That way your cash flow can match your cost estimation. Not that you estimate cost and you estimate it at the wrong time. Then you don't have the cash flow to meet those costs at the time when it comes up, then you have a challenge. So when you are projecting, you estimate your cost properly, and then you take into consideration the Nigerian situation. What is your assumption when it comes to the exchange rate? You have to be very realistic with the assumption, using historical data, not what your gut is telling you, not what you heard when somebody was talking at a beer parlor. Historical data, use it to project into the future to understand how inflation has occurred over the last 20, 30 years. And it's an estimate. Okay, so I assume if it's happened like this over 30 years, then I'm kind of safe to estimate this over the next 30 years with a little buffer. Then you do your cost estimation. Then when you finish your cost estimation, it's time for you to do your budgeting. You are budgeting for this project, which is putting a lot of actual figures in place. And when you are then doing the project budget, is when you must ensure you get exact costs from vendors, from suppliers, not a cost you had last year. Because the way things happen in Nigeria, for example, is the cost you had that you estimated in February are very wrong today. You know, if you do not budget according to real costs, then that's when you know whether you estimated properly or you estimated wrongly, when you are building up your detailed budget. Finally, how do you control costs on a project? Do you ensure that you are looking for ways to mitigate issues that will cost you to overrun your costs, or you are just approving everything that comes your way because you just want? And then another issue is what we call in project management gold plating. Things you didn't plan for, things you didn't estimate for, but it would look nice. Don't you think we should put a screen on the side that kind of shows how the
Sorry,
energy?
sorry to cut you short. What did you call it? Sorry to cut you
Gold,
short.
I call it gold plating.
Gold plated. Okay.
Gold
Thank
plating.
you. Continue. Okay.
Yes. Okay. It's when what you didn't plan for, you know, it's a nice to have, maybe to make the project look more beautiful. Like, for example, like I was saying, a screen in front of the project that shows the energy usage, and then you connect it to the hub that is reading the energy from the inverters, from the batteries, and all of that. You think it would be a nice thing to do. Then you start to invest into that. You put some money into it. It doesn't work so well. You add some more money. You are gold plating the project. You are running out of, you are spending more money than you ever planned to. So when you do your estimation properly, you do your projections properly, you do your budgeting properly, you control your costs properly, what you do is you avoid overruns. Overruns, it messes up your financial modeling. It makes you lose money when you thought you would make money. Then you avoid risk. There's a lot of risk, you know. So when you've made some allowance for risk, and then you don't control your costs very well, you don't estimate or control your costs very well, you would even overshoot your risk allowances, you know. And then when you plan properly for one project, it aids your future planning, because you learn from a project you've planned well. The way we plan that one, then we plan the next one. And then when you plan projects very well, it's an iterative process. And then the next project that is larger, you follow the exact same process. You just follow it with a little more rigor. You know, those are the things you stand to gain when you look properly at how you plan your costing, especially in a project. And not just the costing at the beginning, but the lifetime costs. How do you project it? How do you manage it? How do you control it? Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so very much. And I really like your points around inquiring in advance, planning resources in advance, buying in advance, budgeting in advance, right? And so, quickly, just to point out what you said, what about taking into consideration inflation, forex? I think you said that already. How do you think? I mean, forex can affect your budget. So you made your plan now this year, you made your plan this month, and then in a couple of months before the funding arrives, then there is a change in forex, right? What do you? Okay, but that is if you're receiving funding. Yes, if you're receiving some funding in dollars or in any other currency. So how do you address that if that happens?
So if that
So
happens, it means you made a mistake in your planning. You know, to be realistic means to say, all right, if the exchange rate today, NAFEX rate, let's say it's 412, and you are planning based on the NAFEX rate, look at, you need to read what the projections are from the financial analysts, the ones that know the market. So you read their reports, you read different companies, United Capital, all those people, they are projecting what the exchange rate would look like, NAFEX rate, till the end of the year. So you use all these projections they have, you ride on it. Because what happens is, as people in renewable energy, some of us are financial professionals, some of us are not. But then the ones that also, those of us that are not finance professionals, we understand the language of finance. And then we will then depend on the expertise of those that it is their job to project. Now, it does not mean that when you project, you can't be wrong. Of course you can. But when you project properly and you put in a little buffer, your chances of being wrong are reduced. What you try to do is to mitigate the risk of a future we cannot predict.
Thank you very much for that question. And we go over to the last speaker, Mr. Hadi. I have a question for you here. Digitalization opportunities in Rooftop. Can you share with us what are some of the digitalization opportunities in Rooftop? You have the floor now, Mr. Hadi, if you're available.
Well, hi, Roy. You asked me to comment on something that I'm not professional in, but I will try to. So
I can ask you another question. Would you
prefer? No, that's all right. Well, I mean, actually, you can see there is many comments from some of the panelists saying that Nigeria is lacking of a lot of data. Digitalization, we can see that two different ways. I don't know which aspect of it you are talking about. Actually, there is a digitalization in terms of understanding what has been exactly installed, what are available for the market, what law are in places, and the process, easy process according to certain country before you make your installation. I can tell you, I mean, some places, like for instance, in Ghana, there's a process where you normally need to do it before making installations, and through that process, you receive a kind of licenses allow you to make your installation. But that process at the moment is very complicated and not clear at all. So that is very complicated for the process. If we bring that process fully digital, it can really help in a way that when you want to proceed for any installation, you know from where to start and where you need to end. Like the surprise that people often receive when they go to clear the good, understanding that what has been signed by the government is even not in place when they are starting the process of clearance. So that lack of digitalization just leads, actually, I would say, misleading much of the project maker, and sometimes you cannot know clearly what you need to expect. Another point of digitalization is about understanding how much has been installed in a country. At the moment, it's very difficult to know how much has been installed as a solar in the country. It's very difficult to know what are the laws in place. Obviously, there are some laws in place, but all are not digital. That's the second point. Now, the third point of digitalization is maybe regarding each customer. Like where you want, for instance, I think this is already existing, like like the billboard where you can know exactly how much you are consuming, how much you are taking from the battery system, how much you are taking from inverter XYZ. That is just the point of digitalization as per as the answer is concerned. Now I want to jump quickly on I disconnected a while ago just for product selection. I just want to make a quick word on that. Obviously, when everyone is speaking about product selection, they are talking about tier one or talking about some list of companies. I mean, we have seen a lot of things where people just bring us some data sheet and say, okay, check that data sheet and check your product is almost the same. I mean, what extra you're offering. Well, I'm not here to talk about what Jay is offering, but I just want to explain something. Having a paper and having experience on ground is two different things, completely. When you want to have better understanding of the quality of the product, you might, I mean, if you ask me as a seller, obviously I will sell my product properly. But again, the best way for you to do is to go for those guys who has already used the product to appreciate what are their experience with that product. I believe our company has been supplying goods in this market since 2005, I think in Africa in total, and we have an existing plant there for years. Those big markets such as Egypt, South Africa, I mean, there you can get more information about what are the offering of each company and what they do in terms of quality. Another thing regarding the top guys in the market, I will explain something. You can be a top guy, you can sell a BOM because when you are making your selection, you're talking about bill of material. Now, if I send you a bill of material, which is basically the BOM, which is supposed to be used in your product that you need to install, that do not mean that in my warehouse or in the production phase, I'm using that exact bill of materials. I'm saying that not that Jay is doing that. Not there is a lot of such situation in the market. So the question here is, obviously you cannot come and check exactly unless you have people do that, where especially for big project, where they assign a certain third party to be there during your production phase. But the question here is, if you are able to get enough feedback from what have been installed in the global, let's just say in African market or in the place you are sitting, you can get a lot of feedback from a product which has been provided by XYZ company, which are having some challenge. So you can have better idea about who can provide you better equipment and who cannot. That's basically my comment.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Hadir. And I'd like to just quickly mention that I was in a course in South Africa, and I was very excited to learn that drones could now be used to do some of this, solar fields monitoring. You can just look on your phone. Meanwhile, the drone is flying around that solar field, and you can just check the statistics. The drone is picking statistics for you from the solar farm. I thought that was very interesting, right? And then I heard another scenario where drones could be used to check the electric poles, to check for grasses, to check for trees, to check the general well-being of the wirings of the electricity. I thought that was a very interesting advancement, right? To add to what Mr. Hadir has already said. So it's very important to begin to explore opportunities like that, and to leverage digital technology to make advancements in the renewable energy field. Thank you very much to all of our panelists. I have written a lot of things. I think my notes are filled up with all the things that I've learned here during this call. I think it's time to take questions. Mr. Priyanshi, is that the next thing? Or do we have more time? I have more questions actually for the panelists, but I'm not sure we have more time.
Actually, the time is over, but we have one question from the attendees, so I would just request you to take it.
Oh, okay. What is the experience of other EPC companies in claiming warranty from manufacturers of PV modules and inverters, specifically for kilowatt size plants? So I'm not sure the person was asking directly to any panelists, but I'd like who would like to attempt this question, please? Mr. Kolawole or Mr. Prince, are you up? Shall we repeat the question?
No, I think we got it.
Okay, thank you.
So I could speak to this. I think it's again, it depends on the OEM, but in my experience, it's a fairly easy process. Not to speak out any specific manufacturers, but OEMs, but I've been able to claim warranties on a few inverters, and I mean large size inverters, and working with OEMs who are ready to assist through the process. Sometimes it can also be a very, very complex process for some of the OEMs, but I think it's fairly easy in my view. The only thing I think is a major challenge that a lot of the OEMs are solving by bringing their presence, by having local presence or having local partners, is that whole if I need to claim a warranty, I probably need to send it, because I've experienced that too. I mean, there's an OEM we had to work with, and then we had to send the device to France to fix and send back, and it cost us let me say maybe $1,500 to $2,000 to for that whole process. So and I've also experienced where I had to you know go to Ikeja in Lagos to fix to claim warranty on an inverter that probably had an issue. On the PV side, I doubt if I have seen very much dysfunctional PVs in my experience, but um, what I generally see is that the warranties are for a very long period of time, and I haven't seen, except maybe it's physically damaged or something. So maybe to answer your question in summary is that fairly easy process, but if it has to be done, what might be helpful is um, all the OEMs should start looking towards, because Nigeria, West Africa market, PV market is growing at an alarming rate. So the most important thing to do here is to really, the smart ones are really creating a African presence, as we are seeing with the likes of Json and the rest. And I think every other OEM should follow suit.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kolawole, do you want to add to that or not? Quickly.
No, not really. Prince has covered it pretty well. It depends on the OEM. There are always processes to follow. And if you follow the right processes, if you use the right OEMs, their processes won't be so difficult, and then you can claim your warranty. We've claimed warranty different times and with different levels of difficulty. So it's dependent on the OEM and what kind of structures they have available in Africa. That is the other issue. They don't have the structures available in Africa, then you might struggle with claiming the warranty.
Oh, thank you very much. Do we have any other question, Priyanshi?
No, we are done.
Oh, there is one comment that I saw on the chat box where somebody said, he said, please, would you include sustainability issue? This person wants the panelists to address the sustainability issue, which is highly challenging solar projects, right? Like when you talk about the engineering aspect of things, what about sustainability? Do you guys have any comments to make on that? This person said, would you include sustainability issue, which is highly challenging solar projects? I don't know if I understand it correctly. Franchi, what do you think? So, any sustainability perspectives at all to our panelists? And Mr. Haidar is still here, by the way. Mr. Haidar, did you have anything to say to the initial question?
Well, I think the question has been already handled, to be honest, because again, talking about sustainability, talking about selection of the right product, the right material, it's talking about mitigating the risk. It's talking about making sure that whatever you set it according to a certain target, and then you are there to stay for long. I mean, those companies who are on the panel with us has a lot of experience. They have been operating for quite a while. So I mean, the sustainability is all around that, around understanding what is your target and how long you plan to stay in the market. And again, you make your due diligence every each time when you need to proceed with any project.
Yeah, thank you for that. Somebody asked, I'm just a little curious to know whether net metering and feed-in tariff work in Nigeria. Yes, they do, but I'll let the panelists answer that. Net metering and feed-in tariff, do they work in Nigeria? Mr. Kolawole, can you answer that? Do net metering and feed-in tariff work in Nigeria?
No, not yet. So the federal government has a regulation around feed-in tariffs, a regulation around net metering, but our grid has not yet advanced to that level where it can be implemented. There's a regulation around it, but it is not working, not yet.
Not functional yet. There's a regulation, but no implementation yet.
Yes,
until our infrastructure gets to that kind of level, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I don't think Prince or Mr. Hyder wants to add anything to that. I think that's a pretty straightforward answer. So, Priyanshi, I don't think, do we have any other questions? I don't think so. So over to you right now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much to all our esteemed panelists for such an insightful session, sparing your precious time and extending your support for this event. Ms. Glory, thank you for moderating the session today. So, with this positive note, we have come to an end to this webinar. Now, we will be having a networking after the video. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
From the native land of China to all corners of the world. From the seaside to the mountain tops. From the peaceful countryside to the bustling city. JA Solar is dedicated to the great cause of energy transition and innovation, a great journey that never stops. Driven by the concept of customer first and mutual value, JA Solar continues forging ahead. Dreams give us the power to imagine. Reality keeps us grounded, anchored in the present era and focusing on high-quality green development. JA Solar aims to unbundle the majesty of sunlight emanating in the universe and shapes this infinite energy into a road of new greatness by repurposing it for a higher calling. Beginning in 2005 when it was established, accelerating in 2007 when it was listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange in the US, and maturing in 2019 when it successfully relisted on the Shenzhen A-Shares Exchange. JA Solar has written a magnificent history through the powerful currents of those times. Throughout this journey, JA Solar has remained true to its sacred mission: develop solar power to benefit the entire human race, standing bravely on the tide and pressing ahead on firm footing. After steadily developing and improving over more than a decade, JA Solar has continued to build and perfect an integrated manufacturing chain covering silicon wafers, cells, modules, and power plants, all in an effort to achieve a vertical integration of manufacturing and marketing service systems, from the front-end products to the back-end power generation solutions. Innovation promotes advancement. Excellence produces miracles. With insight sharpened by the rapid fluctuations in the global PV market and adaptability forged by the ever-changing customer demand, JA Solar consistently gets its teams that are never satisfied to pull together and realize a road to stardom in the PV industry. Consistent quality upgrades, interminable cost reduction efforts, and effective process improvements have been the core of our efforts. JA Solar plays an active role in the digital and intellectualized transformation and upgrading, and strives to build a dual mode of intelligent manufacturing and intelligent operation by adopting such advanced technologies as big data, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence, which help to realize intelligent operation and maintenance management and quality control in the production stage, and therefore greatly enhances the security, smartness, reliability, and cost-effectiveness of the operation and maintenance of the solar power station during application stage. On this great journey of bringing grid parity across the PV industry, JA Solar produces premium cells, premium modules, and has developed an independent innovation mechanism by making continuous investment in R&D. By the end of 2019, JA Solar had been issued more than 779 patents based on its leading-edge R&D, maintaining a leading role in driving tremendous development in solar PV technology. On the foundation of leading park cell technology, JA Solar continuously optimizes module types and their component materials in order to keep improving product performance and bring down the overall LCOE for the entire value chain. The next generation of products coming out of R&D are exciting and will further contribute to the industry development. JA Solar's technology roadmap. has attached great importance to perfecting the N-type solar cell, whose average conversion efficiency in mass production is estimated to exceed 25% by the end of 2019 fiscal year. JA Solar's cumulative solar module shipments exceeded 45 gigawatts, of which high-efficiency park product has totaled 13 gigawatts, guaranteeing highly reliable components in power plants with different applications, therefore achieving enhanced financial returns for the power station owners. From China to the world, JA Solar is focused on bringing more light and hope to the entire human race, anchored in its foundation to build a road to prosperity within and beyond the borders. For more than 10 years, JA Solar has explored and succeeded to expand the overseas market, establish a global network of support, distribution, and world-class technical service. Presently, JA Solar manages 12 manufacturing sites and over 30 subsidiaries across the globe. Our high-quality products have been sold to more than 120 countries and regions, with overseas shipments accounting for nearly 75% of our overall sales. JA Solar's module shipments rank first class perennially all over the world. JA Solar maintains steady and responsible growth in its global market share. As a reward for its many years of hard work, JA Solar has been on the list of Fortune China 500 and Global Top 500 New Energy Enterprises for many consecutive years. JA Solar has won many awards from respectable international authorities, such as International Leading Brand PV Module Bankability, Global Tier 1 PV Module Supplier, Europe Top Brand PV Modules. These validate JA Solar as the world's leader in the core technology and quality of PV products. We toil and sweat, we smile and persevere. We remain true to our original aspiration and keep our mission firmly in mind. We lay a road of sincerity that goes deep into our customer's heart. JA Solar, core value of putting customers first and continuously improving its service, tirelessly enhancing its quality, and seeking more sustainable production. Every technical process, every finished product, and lot that ships out all bring out the best. JA Solar and its goal of pursuing ingenuity, modesty, and excellence. Driven by a professional attitude of zero tolerance to quality defects, JA Solar carries out real-time and full process inspection on module production, and naturally its module products are accredited by the global certification and accreditation authorities to guarantee zero defects and long-run reliability. JA Solar is focused not only on the successful project-by-project supply, but also on the total life cycle of product, which is supported by its professional capability matrix. Today, in order to grasp the opportunities of the new PV era, JA Solar keeps an open mind and maintains a resolutely international outlook, constantly improving the sales and service network for the global market. JA Solar has played a large part in such monumental large-scale ground-mounted solar power projects as China Datong Photovoltaic Top Runner Power Demonstration Project, China Qinghai UHV Yellow River Hydropower Project, Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, US Utah, Pakistan Punjab, etc. And also played a big role in the world-famous landmarks such as China Beijing's Daxing International Airport, Marina Bay Sands Singapore, the Swedish Royal Palace, Audi Hungary factory, and many others. JA Solar has established strategic partnerships with many top enterprises in the world, while its number of customers across the globe has been over 33,000. JA Solar is fully aware that a company mission is not only to strive to pursue its economic growth, but also tirelessly try its best to meet its social responsibility obligations as well. Ever since its foundation, JA Solar, filled with gratitude, has been playing an active role in social and public welfare causes, endeavoring to provide green impetus for the happiness of more people. Time does not stand still and is the only non-renewable resource. Standing at the starting point of a new era, JA Solar will undertake 5 development strategies: market globalization, product value realization, capital securitization, management digitalization, enterprise platformatization and work with business partners to build an ecosystem of intergrowth, regeneration, and symbiosis. JA Solar is committed to the cause of benefiting the whole world with this green energy source. What will the future hold? Standing firmly on the tide of energy revolution, JA Solar will adhere to the course of put customers first, respect shareholders' interests, let our employees grow, have keen insight into the ever-changing world situation, and keep pace with time along the grand journey of globalization. Pull together and strive forward dreams and the great vision. Being a great enterprise, the green mission, develop solar power to benefit the entire human race. Harvest the sunshine. JA Solar.